taking control of the future, starting with reclaiming my wife and daughter. After the divorce, Sully lived like a walking corpse until he turned 60. Just as he was about to die alone, he discovered it was all a dream. Waking up, Sully desperately tried to salvage his marriage, but his wife had already lost all hope. In his moment of panic, he awakened the ability to predict the future. Stock fluctuations, development plans, international trends, everything was under his control. In the winter of 2052, in a damp and cold room, a sour smell permeated the air. It felt as if something was withering away. Sully lay half-reclined on the bed, waiting for death in solitude. Now over 60, he had nothing to his name, only endless regret accompanying him through life. Retribution. Cough cough. Thinking back on the past, Sully broke into a violent cough. At 30, he had ruined his marriage through gambling and domestic violence. His wife and daughter had gone abroad, and he had lost all contact with them. Betrayed by friends and family, he had spent over 30 years in a daze. At an age when one should enjoy family bliss, he found himself with nothing but a terminal illness. Cause and effect. This was also a form of retribution. As the sun set, Sully felt that his time was running out. With his last bit of strength, he picked up the photo frame on the bedside. In the yellowed photograph, their husband was handsome and sunny, their wife was dignified and serene, and the baby in her arms looked curiously at the world with wide eyes. This was the first appearance of their family of 3. He hugged the frame tightly, crying like a child. If I hadn't gambled, hadn't been violent, hadn't divorced, would my life have been different? Mouchouet, I was wrong, I deserve to die. Thinking this, Sully spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the photo frame. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the glass of the frame. The crack quickly expanded like a spider web, spreading throughout the entire room. Crash! Everything before his eyes shattered like a mirror. When Sully regained his senses, he found himself in a car. He looked out the window and saw a reflection of a young face in the glass. Was it that his appearance at 30? The familiar scenery outside rapidly receded, instantly bringing back a painful memory. Sully slowly leaned back in the leather seat and muttered, "This is the road to the Civil Affairs Bureau, where my life began to change. I'm dreaming back to 30 years ago. Dreaming back 30 years. TSK, you really should be remade." At that moment, a mocking voice came from the backseat, and in the rearview mirror, he saw a pair of bright, imposing eyes. Sully shivered and instantly recognized the owner of those eyes. Zhang Huaye. She was Mouchouet's classmate and best friend. When Sully and Mouchouet divorced, she had driven them to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Sully's eyes lit up, and he quickly turned to the passenger seat, his heart pounding. Sitting in the passenger seat was a breathtakingly beautiful woman, quietly gazing out the window. Her eyes were swollen, her complexion pale, and there was a bruise at the corner of her mouth. Mouchouet. Seeing his wife from memory, tears streamed down Sully's face. He owed so much to so many people in his life, and Mouchouet was one of them. She was a top student at the Star Sea Conservatory, a true goddess, but after marrying Sully, she became the outlet for his grievances and anger. I really am a scumbag. Dying old would be a favor to me. Thinking this, Sully was filled with grief and indignation. Although he knew that it was too late for repentance, he still gave himself a resounding slap. Smack! The loud sound startled the 2 people in the front seat. Zhang Huaye quickly raised the car window and glared at Sully through the rearview mirror, saying, "Sully, what are you doing? If you're feeling restless, get out, and I'll help you. Don't make a scene in the car." Sully ignored Zhang Huaye. Although this dream allowed him to see the wife he longed for, the regretful past surged back like a tide, causing him even more pain. He would always remember what Mouchouet had said at their wedding. She said she was a seeker of light, and he was her light. Even without great wealth, even with just the basics of life, she would stick with him. But he. Smack! Sully slapped himself again. He questioned himself in agony. Sully, what happened to you? Why have you become so rotten? Why? Slap after slap landed on his face, yet Sully felt no pain, only an unbearable torment in his heart. Enough. Mouchouet couldn't hold back anymore. Every time you make a mistake, you find different ways to repent. I've forgiven you countless times and been fooled countless times. This time, I will never believe you again. Her voice was still as beautiful as ever, but her tone was extremely cold. It was hard to imagine how much grievance and anger she must have endured to turn a gentle and soft woman into someone so cruel and resolute. Hearing Mu Shui's words, Su Li calmed down. Indeed, there were no regrets in this world. In this life, he would carry his regrets to the grave. Thinking this, Su Li reluctantly glanced at Mu Shui, murmuring, "Before I die, I'm grateful to see you in this dream." "Before you die?" Mu Shui heard Su Li's mumbling and turned sharply, her eyes filled with concern as she asked, "Su Li, what do you mean before you die? Are you hiding something from me? How long has it been since I've seen that look?" Seeing Mu Shui's concerned gaze, Su Li felt that he hadn't lived in vain. Though this was just a dream before death, it was enough for him to close his eyes with a smile. "Tell me." As Su Li was about to close his eyes and savor Mu Shui's gentleness, she urgently questioned, "What's wrong with you? What do you mean by dying?" At that moment, Zhang Huaye also looked over through the rearview mirror, muttering, "You're not trying to pull some sob story again, are you?" With their questioning, Su Li felt confused. What was going on with this dream? Why couldn't he wake up all of a sudden? Just then, a sharp pain surged through his face. Su Li touched his face and pinched himself hard. That hurt. He still couldn't wake up. Could it be? This wasn't a dream. Su Li suddenly froze. He found it hard to distinguish what was a dream. Looking back on that lonely and miserable life, he only knew he had spent over 30 years in a daze, but he didn't know how he had spent them. This feeling was indeed like being in a dream. Could it be that life spent in a daze was the real dream? Su Li's eyes widened in disbelief. It felt as if a voice in his heart was telling him that life of separation from his wife and children, of being betrayed by friends and family, was actually a nightmare spanning 30 years. Now, you're awake. So, how will you face the life ahead of you? How will I face the life ahead of me? Su Li trembled all over, tears streaming down his face. In that dream, the lonely and destitute him had tasted all the hardships of life. The starting point of it all was the divorce. Thinking this, he suddenly looked up and shouted to Mu Shui in the front seat, "Mu Shui, I don't want to divorce you. Please give me another chance." As soon as Su Li's words left his mouth, the atmosphere in the car grew cold. Mu Shui shook her head with a pained expression, saying, "Haven't I given you enough chances over the years?" Mu Shui's gaze was as cold as a knife, causing Su Li's heart to ache. Just as he was about to say something, Zhang Huaye could no longer sit still. "Damn it! Do you still have the face to say this? Our Mu Shui was a goddess in college, not only beautiful and curvy but also excelling in her studies. If it weren't for you, she should be studying at the Royal Academy of Music in London. Mu Shui gave up her bright future for you. What did you give her? Domestic violence." Hearing this, Su Li's heart clenched. The current situation was indeed his doing. During the 3 years of starting his business, Su Li had developed a gambling and drinking habit. Compared to before marriage, he had become a different person, often going crazy from drinking, unleashing his fury on Mu Shui, throwing whatever was at hand, and the neighbors had called the police more than once or twice. Just a few days ago, when Mu Shui merely complained about him coming home late, he had lost control and slapped her. Domestic violence is either zero or countless times. No matter how much Mu Shui tolerated him, she couldn't endure this. That night, she proposed the divorce to Su Li. And Su Li had even boldly claimed that he was liberated. Looking back now, Su Li could hardly hate himself more. At the same time, he calmed down. It takes time for a frozen ice to form. A few words of apology could not change Mu Shui's mind. How about I run away and come back to coax her when she calms down? No. This is not a question of whether she calms down or not. With Mu Shui's temper, she will definitely file for divorce. But if I divorce, I will lose Mu Shui forever and live alone for the rest of my life. I can't let this happen. Su Li was unable to make a decision and looked out the window. Suddenly, his sight flashed, and a heart-wrenching scene appeared in front of him. Chapter 002, Cooling Off Period for Divorce. Before him, the scene began to fast forward. Red lights flashed, and the green light lit up. As Zhang Huaye drove through the intersection and into the middle of the road, a runaway dump truck crashed into the right side of the car. Boom! The car carrying the three of them was instantly crushed under the overturned dump truck. Bang! The fast-forwarded images suddenly shattered. Su Li jolted awake, as if returning to reality. At that moment, he was still in the car. What is happening to me? Su Li gasped for breath, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He looked ahead, just as the green light at the intersection turned on, and Zhang Huaye slowly moved forward, about to cross. Seeing this, Su Li hurriedly shouted, "Zhang Huaye! Watch out for the dump truck on the right." "What dump truck? Are you dreaming?" Zhang Huaye cursed, but instinctively slammed on the brakes. At that moment, a deafening honk and the screech of brakes filled the air. On the right, a dump truck loaded with gravel rushed in. It came like a crazed beast. Amidst the ear-piercing screeches, it overturned at the intersection, spilling gravel like a landslide. Screams erupted everywhere. All vehicles flashed their hazard lights, and pedestrians scattered in panic. In the car, Zhang Huaye and Mu Shui both gasped in shock. If it weren't for Su Li's warning, they would have been hit by the dump truck. Zhang Huaye stared blankly ahead, still shaken, murmuring, "Su Li thank you." At this moment, Su Li's heart was also tumultuous. Was this the ability to foresee the future? The incident on the road didn't change anything. Though Zhang Huaye was grateful for Su Li's timely warning, she resolutely took him and Mu Shui to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Staring at the tall building of the bureau, Su Li felt immense pressure and found it hard to take a step. Mu Shui, walking ahead, didn't urge him but simply stopped, waiting quietly. She wore a long white dress, her hair cascading down her shoulders. Though her face looked a bit worn, she was still breathtakingly beautiful. Seeing her like this, Su Li couldn't help but recall their school days. Mu Shui used to stand at the school gate like this, quietly waiting for him to finish playing basketball. Their walks home together had been the envy of many classmates. But now, she was waiting at the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize their divorce. Su Li couldn't accept this reality. He stepped in front of Mu Shui and said, "Mu Shui, I know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I won't gamble again, and I won't be violent towards you." Mu Shui shook her head, meeting Su Li's gaze directly. "Actually, I'm not divorcing you because of your gambling and violence, but for Juo. Juo. Su Li's heart trembled. Su Juo was their daughter, 4 years old this year. Mentioning their daughter ignited anger in Mu Shui's eyes. She has been diagnosed with mild depression. The doctor said it's due to living in fear for years. Upon hearing this, Su Li felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Ever since he got into gambling, he hadn't taken care of their daughter. He hadn't even provided basic care, and whenever Juo cried, he would explode in rage, scaring her so much that she trembled. A 4-year-old child with depression, its severity needn't be stated. This could impact her entire life. Su Li opened his mouth but found himself speechless, as if he had lost the ability to speak. He finally understood why Mu Shui was so determined to divorce him. His past self didn't deserve to be a husband, let alone a father. Let us not dwell on this, it's all in the past. Mu Shui sighed, pulling back her anger, and smiled faintly at Su Li. Let us go inside. With that, she turned and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau, not looking back. Seeing Mu Shui so resolute, Su Li didn't cling any longer. After all, the trauma he caused to her and their daughter couldn't be healed with just a few words. The divorce application process wasn't complicated. Su Li's eyes were red the entire time, fighting to keep his composure. Meanwhile, Mu Shui remained calm. But when submitting the divorce application, Su Li noticed her hands trembling. It was clear that reaching this point was excruciating for her. After exiting the Civil Affairs Bureau, they faced the bustling street, remaining silent for a long time. Finally, Mu Shui spoke up, "For the next few days, I'll be staying at Zhang Huaye's place with Juo. There are dumplings and tang yuan in the fridge, and I've stocked up on 2 jars of beef sauce for noodles. Take care of yourself, don't always eat takeout. It's best if you learn to cook." Su Li's whole body shuddered. Until this moment, Mu Shui was still thinking of him. Su Li, oh Su Li. Look at how kind the woman you lost is. Su Li felt as if his heart was being stabbed 1,000 times, trembling as he said to Mu Shui, "Mu Shui, we have a 30-day cooling-off period. I will change. After all these years, I can't let go of our feelings." 30 days. Mu Shui smiled sadly, looking at the sky. In 30 days, can you really become the Su Li from before? She had admired Su Li since childhood, considering him a god during her teenage years. But this so-called god had given her 3 years of hell. It's not 30 days, but 30 years. Su Li said earnestly, I've spent 30 years in regret. Indeed, in those 30 years in the dream, Su Li had been reflecting. Mu Shui didn't quite understand, but Su Li's deep gaze left her a bit dazed. It was as if the gentle Su Li she once knew had returned. Women are ultimately emotional beings. Tears streamed down Mu Shui's face again as she cried out, Su Li, you scoundrel! Liar! You promised me a beautiful life, but what did you give? Did I want to be wealthy? All I wanted was. At this point, Mu Shui couldn't continue. And in that moment, Su Li was on the verge of collapse. He could see that Mu Shui still loved him. If it weren't for necessity, she wouldn't have taken this step. No. I can't lose Mu Shui. Su Li screamed inwardly, instinctively reaching out to wipe her tears. But just then, his vision blurred, and the scene fast-forwarded again. In this fast-forward scene, he saw himself getting kicked down by Zhang Huaye. Zhang Huaye! No! Realizing something was wrong, Su Li shouted out. At the same time, he instinctively shifted back. In his peripheral vision, he caught sight of Zhang Huaye charging in. She had already lifted her leg, kicking toward him. Thanks to his prior premonition, Su Li dodged just in time. Zhang Huaye's kick missed completely. Perhaps due to her rush, she lost control of her body. With a thud, she landed between Su Li and Mu Shui in a split. The air around them froze. Everyone around cast surprised glances, even the security guard at the entrance was unsure of what to say, holding his thermos cup. A woman suddenly bursting in to perform a split left everyone bewildered. Mu Shui was stunned for a few seconds before reacting, quickly rushing to help Zhang Huaye off the ground, scolding, Zhang Huaye, what are you doing? Zhang Huaye grimaced in pain but shot a furious glare at Su Li, asking, Su Li, were you going to hit someone just now? Su Li shook his head with a wry smile, about to explain, but Mu Shui spoke first. Zhang Huaye, he didn't he? Zhang Huaye finally realized her impulsiveness, cleared her throat, and said, Su Li, don't blame me for misunderstanding you. You know what kind of person you are. Zhang Huaye, let us not say any more. Mu Shui tugged at Zhang Huaye's arm. No. I need to say this. Zhang Huaye pushed Mu Shui's hand away, saying, Su Li, if you're still a man, then take responsibility for all your debts. Those are yours. Mu Shui has barely enjoyed a single moment of happiness with you. If Mu Shui chooses to bear this with you, it's because she is foolishly hopeless. But if you don't even have this awareness, then don't bother Mu Shui, because you're a hopeless loser. Scum. Bastard. Zhang Huaye unleashed a barrage of words like a machine gun. Su Li just listened quietly, without saying a word. At that moment, he even hoped that Zhang Huaye's kick had landed on him. Scum or garbage, it was a fitting description. After a while, Zhang Huaye ran out of steam. With Mu Shui's support, she limped toward the parking lot. Fortunately, she was a dance major, otherwise, after that split, she might not be able to stand up for days. Watching the two leave, Su Li clenched his fists tightly. There was still hope. During this 30-day cooling-off period. Even if he had to pursue her all over again, he would. Chapter 003, Foreseeing the Future. Zhang Huaye was right. Regardless of the divorce, Mu Shui shouldn't have to bear the debts. With entrepreneurship and gambling, Su Li owed over 1.2 million. Mu Shui was unaware of much of this debt. She didn't need to take it on at all. Yet this woman, during the divorce, foolishly offered to share the burden. How foolish could she be? And how pathetic had he become to drive such a woman away? I not only want to repay the debts but also give Mu Shui a better life. Su Li thought, his vacant eyes suddenly shining with determination. He recalled the foreseeing the future ability he had triggered twice before. Though he was nearly 30, this supernatural ability felt somewhat childish, but he couldn't ignore those experiences. Just moments ago, he had used it to make Zhang Huaye perform a split in public. Reflecting on it, this ability seemed to activate automatically, especially when he or those around him were in danger. It only triggers in danger, but it could help make money. But where can I find people in danger? I can't just set up a fortune-telling stall, can I? Su Li mused as he walked. He settled down at a noodle shop, preparing to grab a quick lunch. The owner eagerly handed him the menu, in high spirits. As Su Li scanned the menu, his gaze landed on beef and potato rice, when suddenly, flashing images appeared before him. Sorry, we're out of beef today, the owner said in the vision. Su Li froze. His ability had activated again. To verify, he asked the owner, "Are you out of beef?" The owner blinked in surprise, responding, "Wow, we really are." "How did you know?" Su Li nodded and shifted his attention to pork dumplings. Sure enough, the future scene flickered again. In the vision, the owner apologetically said, "Oh dear, the dumpling skins are a bit thick today. If you don't mind the texture, I can make them for you." Su Li asked again, "Are the dumpling skins a bit thick today?" Hearing this, the owner's smile froze, and he asked, "Are you here to eat? How do you know what's happening in my kitchen?" Su Li felt ecstatic. His ability to foresee the future could be actively triggered. As long as he focused on something, he could see related future scenes. Focusing on the owner's face, he immediately saw a joyful sight. In the rapidly flashing images, he saw the owner's twin sons receiving admission letters from Kyoto Huking University. Now, there's still a month until the college entrance exams. This means I can foresee events a month in advance. This is just casual. If I concentrate, I should be able to predict even further. Su Li was elated, but the owner's expression darkened. "Are you going to order or what? Do I have food on my face?" Su Li hurriedly apologized, smiling, "Boss, you look rosy. Something good is bound to happen in your family within 2 months." The owner paused, then beamed, "Har har. That would be great. My 2 kids have their college entrance exams next month." "Is that what you meant?" Su Li cryptically replied, "You'll know when the time comes. Just believe that your wishes will come true. I'll have a bowl of braised pork soup noodles, please." People love hearing good news. Though Su Li's claim was unfounded, the owner still smiled broadly, even secretly adding a marinated egg to Su Li's order. At that moment, Su Li's mood lifted. His most pressing task was to repay his debts. With the ability to foresee the future, earning money should be easy. He quickly opened the lottery app, hoping for a windfall. However, he was disappointed. His ability couldn't predict the lottery. Does this mean I can only predict events with clear patterns? Su Li thought quietly. It seemed the future images in his mind weren't mere predictions but derived from existing clues in reality, step by step. The lottery was a random event, utterly unpredictable, which made sense. After realizing this, he opened the stock trading app. For the average investor, stocks were no different from gambling. But this operated according to market rules, so it definitely had patterns. Su Li spent the time it took to finish a bowl of noodles analyzing domestic and foreign markets. The domestic market was stable recently, with only minor fluctuations over the month. Trading short term would barely yield any profit. However, the foreign market was different. The Nasdaq would begin to collapse tonight. In just one night, 2 circuit breakers would trigger unprecedented. If that's the case. Su Li swallowed his noodles, a smile creeping onto his face. He quickly took out his phone and dialed the number saved as Eagle Finance. This was one of his largest creditors, to whom he owed over 700,000. "You son of a gun! You dare to call me? I was just about to come to your place to collect. What's up? Got the money?" On the other end, the gruff voice of the creditor, Xiong Yingjun, boomed. Su Li smiled, saying, "Boss Xiong, I don't have the money right now, but I have some valuable information. You think you can play games with me? If you don't pay up soon, don't blame me for being ruthless." Xiong Yingjun warned, sounding serious. Hearing this, Su Li frowned. The reason he initially borrowed money from Xiong was that they were high school classmates, hoping he would show some old friendship and not press him too hard. Xiong had indeed been lenient despite Su Li's long-standing debt. He hadn't sent anyone to collect. But once was enough. He couldn't keep pushing his luck. If Su Li didn't repay, his old classmate would inevitably start pressing for it. Su Li certainly couldn't pay him now. But he knew Xiong had a substantial amount of capital in the stock market. He could sell the information about the impending market turbulence to him. Su Li steadied his mind and said seriously, "Boss Xiong, you have quite a bit of capital in the stock market, right? What does it matter to you where my money is? You still want to borrow from me? You really are a deadbeat." Xiong scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. Back in high school, he had envied Su Li. Su Li was not only handsome and smart, but he also had the beautiful Mu Shui by his side, always doting on him. Now, he had fallen to this state. No. He couldn't delay any longer. Deadbeats were bottomless pits. Just as Xiong was about to press for repayment, Su Li said earnestly, "Boss Xiong, the stock market will experience dramatic changes tonight. If you trust me, share your stocks, and I'll tell you how to proceed." Chapter 004, Circuit Breaker. Trust you. Xiong Yingjun scoffed, "I trusted you too much, which is why I continued to lend you money after your business failed. But how did you repay that trust?" Su Li took a deep breath and said, "Xiong, I have inside information this time, it's absolutely true." In that 30-year dream, although Xiong Yingjun had chased him all over the place, he never laid a hand on his family. Just based on that, Su Li was willing to help him out. Inside information. Did Buffett give it to you? Xiong Yingjun teased. How much do you want to sell me this information for? Su Li thought for a moment and replied, 200,000. Without his reminder, Xiong Yingjun would lose everything in the upcoming stock market fluctuations, and Su Li was only asking for 200,000, a mere token of goodwill. But Xiong Yingjun didn't grasp Su Li's kindness. He just sneered and said, "My professional team hasn't spoken yet. What makes you think you can advise me? Instead of wasting time, you should find a way to gather the money. As long as you don't play tricks, I can still give you some time." With that, Xiong Yingjun hung up the phone. Listening to the busy tone, Su Li shook his head helplessly. He had already deduced that the stock market would shake tonight by around 10 p.m., the market index would drop by 7%, triggering the first circuit breaker. By then, Xiong Yingjun's losses would be far from just double digits. Of course, this wasn't entirely Xiong Yingjun's fault. After all, how could a boss with millions in capital take advice from a washed-up gambler like him? "It doesn't matter, you'll be contacting me soon." Su Li smiled faintly and locked his phone. In the evening, Su Li returned to his rental apartment. The house they bought for their wedding had long been repossessed by the bank. The three of them had lived in this small one-bedroom apartment for 2 years. By now, Mu Shui had already taken Juo and left. Su Li could tell she had cleaned carefully before leaving. The floor was spotless, and household items were neatly organized. But the room felt empty and exceptionally cold. Su Li's heart ached as he slumped onto the sofa. Reflecting on the past, he realized he was truly a scoundrel. But lamenting was pointless. He had to take action. In a poor marriage, every little thing becomes a sorrow. Without a material foundation, how could he offer Mu Shui happiness? Su Li immediately sprang up from the sofa, pulled out his laptop, and opened all the domestic news websites. He needed to read enough information and then, using his ability to predict the future, quickly devise an investment plan. When his attention was highly focused, time flew by. By the time he stopped working, it was nearly 10 in the evening. Looking at the clear and interconnected, get-rich scheme in his document, he felt boundless hope for the future. His ability to predict the future was truly remarkable. There were no restrictions in time or space. From minor celebrity gossip to major national policies, he could predict everything clearly. But there was one strange thing. He couldn't predict the futures of those he owed money to. Parents, Mu Shui, Juo, and his siblings. Their futures were a complete blur. Su Li speculated it might be because these people had a strong connection with him. Every word and action of his could rewrite their lives. Just as he was thinking about this, the lights in the room suddenly went out, plunging Su Li into darkness, with only the glow from his laptop illuminating the surroundings. Power outage. Su Li muttered as he glanced outside. He noticed that only his unit seemed to be out of power. Understanding, Su Li realized it was likely due to unpaid bills. Suddenly, he felt a sense of helplessness as if he had fallen into darkness. In the past, Mu Shui had taken care of mundane tasks like paying utility bills. He didn't even know the payment account. With Mu Shui gone, his world seemed to lose its light. At that moment, his phone rang suddenly. He picked it up to find it was a video call from Mu Shui. Su Li's heart raced, reminiscent of his university days. When he was a freshman, Mu Shui was still in high school. There was only a thin barrier between them at that time. They often stayed up late secretly chatting on the phone. The tension and excitement felt just like now. Su Li quickly fixed his hair and found a good angle before answering the video call. As soon as the call connected, a cute, chubby little face appeared on his screen. Juo. Su Li exclaimed in delight. His guilt over his daughter was just as deep as it was for Mu Shui. Waking up from the dream and seeing his little girl felt like a reunion after ages. "Daddy." Juo timidly called out. The poor little thing seemed somewhat dull after suffering from depression. Suli felt a sharp pain in his heart. This was all his doing. At that moment, the little girl said, "Daddy, it's so dark over there. Are you scared?" Suli understood Mushwe must have received a notice about the unpaid bill and called to check on him. His eyes welled up as he gently replied, "Juo Juo, Daddy's not afraid of the dark, because Mommy has magic. She'll bring light to Daddy soon." Magic? Juo Juo tilted her head, puzzled. Just then, the living room lights turned back on. Without a doubt, Mushwe had paid the electricity bill for him. Yay! It's bright again. Is this Mommy's magic? Seeing this scene, Juo Juo clapped her hands in joy. Watching his daughter's innocent smile, Suli felt his heart melting. He smiled and said, "Yes, because Mommy is an angel. She helped drive away the darkness." Gross. I can't believe this scoundrel. The ability to sweet talk is strong. No wonder he can fool you into caring about whether he has electricity after the divorce. Zhang Huaye's voice came through the phone, clearly sitting nearby. Then, Mushwe chided from the side, "No. I'm not caring about him, Zhang Huaye. Don't say these things in front of Juo Juo." With that, she took the phone. Seeing Mushwe's unadorned but beautiful face made Suli's heart race again. He really couldn't understand what kind of scoundrel could bear to speak harshly to such a beautiful wife. Mushwe's eyes were slightly puffy, clearly having cried. She spoke coldly, "I'll send you the landlord's contact information and various payment accounts. You'll have to handle these matters yourself from now on." Suli smiled and nodded, feeling ecstatic. Though Mushwe claimed not to care, she immediately helped him pay the electricity bill after receiving the notice. This showed that she still prioritized him. In the past, he truly had taken his good fortune for granted. Suli reflected on this, eager to ask about Tudwa's condition. This was the first day of the divorce cooling-off period. If they could still communicate normally, that would be a good sign. But just then, a call came in from the contact labeled Eagle Finance. Suli frowned and hung up directly. It seemed Xiongmingjuan's stocks had already begun to plummet. But so what? He was on a video call with his family. Even if the King of Heaven came, he'd have to wait. However, just a few seconds after hanging up, Xiongmingjuan called back, seemingly in a rush. "What's going on?" Suli furrowed his brow and hung up again. But Mushwe had seen the expression on his face. Having endured cold shoulders and insults, she instinctively thought Suli was impatient with her, and she helplessly smiled, "You go ahead and handle your business. I'll hang up." "Wait. Mushwe." Suli hurriedly called out, but the video had already disconnected. "Xiongmingjuan. You're ruining my good fortune." Suli gritted his teeth and dialed Eagle Finance. Chapter 005, Dad, you're my real dad. At this moment, in the conference room of Eagle Finance, Xiongmingjuan was typing a text message. "Suji, pick up the phone. I admit my voice was a bit too loud earlier." Before he finished editing the message, Suli's call came back. Startled, he quickly switched to speakerphone and said with a smile, "Suji, you finally picked up. Things are on fire over here." On the other end, Suli replied coldly, "Then call 119. What do you want from me?" Hearing that tone, Xiongmingjuan felt a bit flustered. As Suli had mentioned, the stocks began plummeting after the market opened tonight. By 10:05 p.m., the index had dropped by 7%, triggering the circuit breaker, a rare occurrence in the history of the market. Now, the company staff gathered together to discuss countermeasures. The financial managers, after professional analysis, suggested adding funds to buy the dip and waiting for a rebound. But Xiongmingjuan was anxious and wanted to ask Suli about the insider information before making a decision. After all, he had predicted the market's fluctuations before the professional team. Realizing this, Xiongmingjuan said seriously, "Suji, I apologize for my attitude at noon. I need your insider info. I'll transfer you 200,000 tomorrow." Suli paused for a moment and replied, "Now it's 300,000. Hearing this, the financial manager in the conference room scoffed, "So arrogant. Selling a piece of info for 300,000. Does he think he's Buffett's disciple?" But Xiongmingjuan shot a glare at the manager to silence him. The recent market crash had already caused severe damage, and none of the managers had foreseen it. Even with their degrees from top universities, they were just a bunch of fools. After years in the financial industry, Xiongmingjuan had fallen into many traps, so he knew that to survive in the stock market, having information was always the top priority. Sometimes, a useful insider tip could save billions in losses. He turned off the speaker and said into the phone, 300,000 it is. I'll transfer you a 50,000 deposit now. Let us discuss how I should proceed next. On the other end, Suli smiled. Their high school dropout Xiong Ying-jun had managed to thrive in finance, which was no small feat. His keen instincts and decisive mindset were the keys to his success. With money coming in, Suli felt much better. He solemnly told Xiong Ying-jun, "Withdraw all your funds first, there will be another circuit breaker tonight." What? On the other end, Xiong Ying-jun was stunned into silence. The circuit breaker was a protective mechanism for the market. To put it simply, it automatically cuts off the fuse when there's a crisis overload. Triggering 2 circuit breakers in one night had never happened in the market's history. Xiong Ying-jun couldn't believe it. "Su-ji, what's going on? Is the world coming to an end?" Suli shook his head and explained, "It's caused by multiple factors, and the explanation is complex. There will be violent fluctuations ahead, so I suggest staying away from this turbulent market." Xiong Ying-jun gasped. Normally, when the market drops, he would add funds to buy the dip, possibly even leverage. If what Suli said was true, he might end up on the rooftop in a month. Seeing that Xiong Ying-jun was silent for a long time, Suli asked, "Xiong-zone, the second circuit breaker is expected at 3 a.m. Do you want to wait and see, or will you listen to me?" Xiong Ying-jun broke out in a cold sweat. The funds operated by Eagle Finance in the market were not just his alone. If it truly collapsed to trigger a second circuit breaker, he'd lose everything tonight. Listening to Suli might mean missing an opportunity, but not listening. Thinking of the terrifying consequences, Xiong Ying-jun shuddered and quickly turned to the financial manager. "When trading resumes, withdraw all funds from the market." In the US, at 3 p.m., the trading floor was in chaos. A 13% drop triggered the second circuit breaker. By now, the entire market had evaporated trillions of dollars. The brokers who bought the dip were either stunned, despondent, or on the rooftop. Meanwhile, Suli was peacefully drifting into dreamland. In his dream, Mu Shui withdrew their divorce application and, a year later, gave birth to their second baby. It was a big boy. Weighing 8 pounds and 8 ounces, extremely healthy. With joy, Suli opened the swaddling cloth, lovingly gazing at his second child. But instead, he saw a familiar big face. The second baby grinned widely and boomed, "Su-ji, you're my real dad." "What the heck? It's Xiong Ying-jun." Suli shouted in shock, jolting awake. After a daze of 10 seconds, he muttered, "That dream was too scary." Just then, his phone rang. He leaned over to check, and it was Xiong Ying-jun calling. He shivered and answered the phone, immediately hearing the same rough voice as in the dream, "Su-ji." "No. Su-dad. You've saved my life." Suli felt a chill run down his spine. "Xiong-zone, don't say that." Xiong Ying-jun, still shaken, replied, "Su-ji. I'm both regretful and grateful right now. Regretful for not listening to you sooner, but grateful that I finally did. Last night was a nightmare. I heard that several leveraged brokers in the country jumped off buildings." Suli nodded. "I just provided you the information. It was your decisiveness that saved your life." "Decisive? Without your info, my decisive move would have been to leverage and buy the dip. That was close. I almost went to the rooftop." Even now, Xiong Ying-jun was still trembling, thinking how incredible Suli was. He predicted a circuit breaker at 3 a.m., and it happened just like that. Could he really tell fortunes? Taking a deep breath, he said, "No need to say more. Whenever you want to return the 700,000, just do it. I won't charge you interest." "Thank you, Xiong-zone." Suli smirked. He knew Xiong Ying-jun wanted to write off the debt, fearing that after settling it, Suli would ignore him. Thus, he came up with the idea of no need to pay back, but still owe, to create a personal favor in return. If Suli had a smaller mindset, he might have fallen into the trap. But then again, maintaining a relationship with Xiong Ying-jun wasn't a bad idea. After all, he had over 10 years in finance and accumulated plenty of connections. In the future, when engaging in futures or foreign trade, he could ask for his help. Of course, this came with a prerequisite. Suli still recognized Xiong Ying-jun's character, otherwise, he wouldn't have helped him. Thinking of this, he asked Xiong Ying-jun, I have another piece of insider information. Are you interested in doing some short-term trading with me? Absolutely. That sounds great. Xiong Ying-jun replied excitedly, I'll pick you up at noon, and we can find a place to chat over drinks. After hanging up, a new text message popped up. Su Li glanced at it and, upon reading the content, couldn't he help but smile. Chapter 006, Sneaker Trading, Shenzhen Series. Your debit card account 2046 received a deposit of 250,000 yuan on April 30th, leaving a balance of 300,334.50 yuan after the transaction. Xiong Ying-jun had already transferred the remaining 250,000 yuan. Su Li let out a sigh of relief. This feeling was truly surreal. Just yesterday, he was a broke loser. Now, with a single phone call, he had gained 300,000 yuan in his account. It felt too easy to make this money. He wanted to share this joy with Mu Shui, but upon reflection, he realized it wasn't the right time yet. With money coming in so quickly, Mu Shui would likely think of the worst. I should hold back and clean up this mess step by step, he thought. He glanced at his phone's wallpaper, which was a picture of Mu Shui he had taken in college. In the photo, Mu Shui stood in a sea of flowers, looking back with a serene smile. Although she was wearing a simple white dress, she outshone the flowers. People who didn't know her would think she was a celebrity. Mu Shui, within 30 days, I will show you my transformation. Su Li promised himself as he looked at the get-rich plan he had created last night. It was time to execute the next step of his plan. At noon, Xiong Ying-jun invited Su Li to a well-known restaurant. The private room was elegantly decorated, with a round table full of exquisite dishes and 2 bottles of flying Moutai in the center. Su Ji, what short-term trade are we playing this time? The stock market is so volatile that it's not a good time for leveraging, and frequent trading yields little profit. Xiong Ying-jun eagerly refilled Su Li's glass and asked. Su Li held up 4 fingers and said, if this short-term trade goes well, it could bring you at least a 600% return in 2 days. 600% return in 2 days. Xiong Ying-jun's body shook, and he quickly raised his glass with both hands. Big brother, I want to hear more. Su Li clinked glasses with him. I want to trade sneakers. Sneaker trading? Interesting. Xiong Ying-jun perked up. He had started collecting basketball shoes in high school and had some understanding of the market. If he picked the right shoes, a 4 to 5 times return wasn't uncommon. What pair are you looking at, Su Ji? Xiong Ying-jun asked. Su Li replied, the latest Shenzhen series from Li Ning. Xiong Ying-jun paused, his eyes dimming. Those shoes have already dropped below their release price. They probably won't appreciate. Exactly. The Shenzhen series was created by Li Ning to enter the high-end sneaker market, priced at 1,099 yuan per pair, comparable to major international brands like Nike and Adidas. However, the domestic market didn't support high-end domestic sneakers, and the Shenzhen series quickly fell below its release price, with many resellers facing losses. Now, the shoes were only 699 yuan each, and it was expected that the price would continue to drop soon. But Su Li knew that from tomorrow night, the Shenzhen series would be incredibly popular. The reason was that the CBA youth team would dominate the Sakura youth team in a friendly match tomorrow night, and the 5 players would be wearing the Shenzhen series sneakers provided by Li Ning. Chitu, Diluo, Juiying, Daiyuan, and Zhuang Wangfeidian. These 5 pairs of sneakers would be wildly sought after the match, and overnight, the price would soar to over 6,000 yuan. However, Su Li didn't want to explain all this to Xiong Ying-jun. Whether he believed it or not was up to him. He just wanted to enhance his image in Xiong Ying-jun's eyes. Su Li said to Xiong Ying-jun, I know everything you mentioned, but the truth is often held by a few. It's your call. Do you want to take a gamble with me? The truth is held by a few. Xiong Ying-jun mulled over this phrase, feeling it was quite insightful. Last night, with just one sentence, Su Li had helped him avoid a disaster. If he were an aimless person, how could he have done that? After a moment of silence, Xiong Ying-jun looked up and smiled, all right. Since Su Ji is so confident, I believe you. I'm in. How much? Su Li raised an eyebrow. 300,000. Xiong Ying-jun declared boldly. Su Li was taken aback. You're a boss with assets over 100 million, and you're only putting in this much. Hey. I don't have that much in assets. Xiong Ying-jun chuckled. The stock market earthquake has left me badly injured, and I need to keep some cash for operations. Besides, I'm your little brother, I shouldn't invest more than you. Aha! Su Li smiled without saying anything. The meal that Xiong Yingjun was treating him to must have cost nearly 20,000 yuan. Putting in 300,000 for investment was almost child's play. This showed he didn't really believe the Shenzhen series would appreciate. He was merely trying to maintain a relationship with Su Li. No worries. He was the one bringing in money, not begging for it. With this in mind, Su Li clinked glasses with Xiong Yingjun, saying, "We need to act quickly, the price of this shoe series will rise tomorrow. You collect sneakers, so you must have good channels, right? You came to the right person." Xiong Yingjun made an okay gesture and immediately took out his phone. "I'll call the biggest reseller in East China right now." As soon as the call connected, a lazy voice came through. "Yo. Is that you, brother Xiong? Are you looking to switch cars, shoes, or maybe even women?" Xiong Yingjun got straight to the point. "Who is I? How many pairs of Li Ning's Shenzhen series do you have in stock?" "Shenzhen series?" Who is I paused, saying, "I have quite a few." The official price dropped from 1,099 to 699. I'm about to lose a fortune. Xiong Yingjun chuckled. "Brother, I'm here to save you. Give them to me at 600 per pair. I want 1,000 pairs. Help you recover some losses. 1,000 pairs. Hui's voice pitched higher, quickly understanding Xiong Yingjun's intention. "Brother Xiong, even you can misjudge sometimes. These shoes have no appreciation potential, they won't sell." Xiong Yingjun shot a meaningful glance at Su Li, as if to say, "See. It's not that I don't want to invest, it's that these shoes are truly not viable." But Su Li spoke up directly. "If brother Xiong doesn't want to invest, I can do it myself." Hui Zai on the other end, curious, asked, "Brother Xiong, do you have someone else?" Xiong Yingjun awkwardly laughed. "He's my brother, we're partnering to buy shoes." Upon hearing this, Hui Zai lowered his voice. "Brother Xiong, your brother is definitely misjudging this. The Shenzhen series is positioned awkwardly. Foreigners can't grasp the romance of Eastern legends, while locals doubt Li Ning's brand power. Trading these shoes is like trading peanuts." Hearing this, Xiong Yingjun's face changed dramatically, and he quickly snapped, "Why so much nonsense? Did I say I was trading shoes? Can't I buy them to donate to the Hope Project?" "All right, don't say I didn't warn you, Tilder," Hui Zai sighed. "Let us go with your price, 1,000 pairs for 600,000. I'll personally deliver them tomorrow and treat you to dinner as a thank you for rescuing me." Upon hearing this, Su Li could almost see the smile on Hui Zai's face. He was undoubtedly relieved, coupled with a hint of mockery, seeing both himself and Xiong Yingjun as naive investors. But by tomorrow night, he would know what kind of deal he had really made. Thinking this, Su Li clinked glasses with Xiong Yingjun, saying, "Have him deliver the shoes tomorrow afternoon. I'm afraid he might change his mind by evening." Chapter 007. Dad is not a bad guy. Xiong Yingjun could really hold his liquor. From noon until the afternoon, he and Su Li kept clinking glasses. By the time they both felt a bit tipsy, they started reminiscing about their high school days. With a flushed face, Xiong Yingjun said to Su Li, "Su Ji, you have no idea how envious I was of you back in school. You were handsome, had good grades, and were great at basketball. And the key point was, you had the campus beauty as your childhood sweetheart. The protagonists in those school romance dramas were nothing compared to you. But your transformation over the past 2 years is quite something." At this, Xiong Yingjun took a sip of his drink, hesitating to continue. Su Li downed his glass and replied, "I don't even know what has happened to me. Ever since I started my business, I felt like I've lost my way, becoming narrow-minded and selfish. It's not too late to recognize that." Hearing this, Xiong Yingjun showed a comforting expression, saying, "Mu Shui is really a great girl. She's beautiful, has a good figure, and you really want to divorce her." Su Li looked up. "You know about the divorce?" Xiong Yingjun nodded. "In our line of work, we have to investigate everything thoroughly, even our own fathers." Su Li understood and said, "In the past, I wronged her. But from now on, I won't let go. I want to win Mu Shui back." Hearing this, Xiong Yingjun patted Su Li on the shoulder and exclaimed, "Damn. That's the Su Li I know. No more talk, let's drink." The two drank to the point of drunkenness, as if they had regained their original selves. When they stumbled back to the apartment, Su Li collapsed onto the sofa. He instinctively called out, "Mu Shui, I want water." But in the small yet empty living room, no one responded. Mu Shui. Tears unconsciously rolled down Su Li's cheeks. His mind was filled with memories of Mu Shui's every smile and frown. In his hazy state, a message popped up. It was a voice message from Mu Shui. Su Li opened it and smiled. But as he smiled, he began to cry again. In the voice message, his daughter Su Juo said in a sweet voice, "Daddy, at dinner, Aunt Xiongye said you are a bad guy." I cried for a long time. Daddy is not a bad guy. Just a bit fierce, right? After crying for a bit, Su Li replied, Juo, Aunt Xiongye is not wrong. A fierce daddy is a bad guy. But daddy will be a good man from now on. Why don't you ask mommy if she would give daddy a chance to change? He waited until late at night, but there was no reply. Su Li sighed and fell asleep on the sofa. Archu. The next afternoon, Su Li sneezed as he stepped into Xiongning Land Rover. At this moment, the biggest secondary dealer in East China Huizai had already delivered 1,000 pairs of Shenzhen sneakers to Hangzhou, all stacked in the warehouse that Xiong Yingjun had arranged. The two came specifically to inspect the goods, and after confirming there were no issues, they finalized the deal. Red, Chitu, 100 pairs. White, Dilu, 150 pairs. Black, Juyin, 200 pairs. Purple-black, Daiyuan, 250 pairs. Yellow-black, Zhuanghuang Feidian, 300 pairs. All done, brothers, time to pay up Tilder. Wearing a baseball cap, Huizai smiled at Su Li and Xiong Yingjun. He was around 30, dark and thin, looking quite weathered. At that moment, Su Li was examining a pair of Chitu. In fact, the Shenzhen series had a great design. The lines were smooth, exuding a muscular feel. It felt like the sneakers themselves contained power, ready to burst forth like a spirited steed. In terms of elasticity and softness, the Shenzhen series was no weaker than Adidas or Nike products. The only thing they lost to was the label domestic brand. After all, with foreign brands being so dominant, domestic shoes still had a long way to go to break into their high-end market. After inspecting the goods, Xiong Yingjun swiped his card, transferring 600,000 yuan to Huizai's account. Upon seeing the transfer record, Huizai couldn't help but smile. In his eyes, Xiong Yingjun and Su Li were just two naive big spenders. Now, the Shenzhen series was a hot potato in the sneaker world. This time, Li Ning's attempt to penetrate the high-end market was merely an experiment, and the output had been limited. It was unlikely they'd put more effort into the Shenzhen series. Without large-scale promotion, the series would likely continue to decline in price. It was expected that in 2 months, the price would drop to only 400 or 500 yuan. Huizai had previously advised Xiong Yingjun because he was a major client. He didn't want to jeopardize their relationship over a deal that was less than $1 million. Now, he had given all the advice he could, and any losses couldn't be blamed on him. Thinking this, Huizai smiled at Xiong Yingjun. Brother Xiong, thanks for saving the day. You must let me treat you to a nice bath tonight. The most authentic kind. Saying this, he turned to Su Li. You should join too. I know a place that is absolutely thrilling. Su Li awkwardly laughed. How about we go to a bar to watch the game instead? Tonight at 8 was the friendly match of the CBA youth team. Su Li really wanted to see the look of shock on Huizai's face. Huizai scoffed at the suggestion, saying, What's so great about a night game? It's all fake. Su Li replied, Well. Xiong Yingjun exclaimed, Damn. Su Li, you get it instantly. After dinner, the three of them went to a bar. At this time, the game hadn't started yet, but the bar was already packed with people. Normally, the CBA games don't draw much attention. However, this time, they were up against the Sakura team, who were doing quite well. That alone attracted a crowd of passionate young fans. Huizai reserved the best viewing spot and eagerly stocked up on drinks, but he was a bit confused as he asked Xiong Yingjun, What's so interesting about this CBA game? It's the youth team. There's no competition, no skills. Xiong Yingjun shook his head. I don't know, but if Su Ji wants to watch, let us just watch. Seeing his major client respect Su Li so much, Huizai found it strange. This guy had good temperament and looks but dressed plainly, and his investment insight was terrible. Why was Xiong Yingjun so invested in him? Could it be? Has Xiong Yingjun started to like men? Just as he was thinking this, Xiong Yingjun suddenly shouted, Damn! Su Ji! Are you a god? Huizai was startled and quickly looked at the two. Both were staring at the big screen in the bar. Xiong Yingjun's face was filled with shock, while Su Li wore a calm smile, as if he had everything under control. Curious, Hui's eye glanced at the big screen. The broadcast was already underway, introducing the players. Hui's eye looked left and right but couldn't see anything different. Just as he was about to ask, he noticed the sneakers worn by the 5 players of the CBA youth team. Red, white, black, purple, black, yellow, black. Holy shit! Aren't those the 5 styles from the Shenzhen series? Suddenly, Hui's eye felt dizzy. The Shenzhen series appearing in this game meant what? As long as the CBA youth team didn't lose too badly, the Shenzhen series would go up in price. If they won, then it would skyrocket even more. Chapter 008, Call Me Blind Bear. On the basketball court, there was a constant sound of sneakers rubbing against the floor. In the bar, cheers were rising one after another. In the first 2 quarters, the CBA youth team maintained a score advantage. By the 3rd quarter, the opponent had been beaten so badly that they had no idea what was going on and the score was quickly widened. In the end, the CBA youth team defeated the Sakura youth team 122-62. When the final whistle sounded, the atmosphere in the bar reached its peak. Drinks and confetti were flying everywhere, and the cheers were deafening. But Huizai just sat on the sofa, like a wooden sculpture. What's going on? What went wrong? Gray murmured to himself. Although he is a middleman, he is extremely professional. Mastering inside information is basic skills. When he bought the Shenzhen series of sneakers, he had been paying attention to Li Ning's promotional plan. Huizai was aware of Li Ning's discussion of cooperation with CBA, but didn't the talks break down? Why are you suddenly sponsoring the CBA youth team? It's such a big thing, how come no news has been leaked? Huizai muttered to himself, totally confused. He naturally didn't know that Li Ning's cooperation with the CBA youth team was only reached 20 minutes before the game. At this time, Xiong Yingjun was already standing on the table excitedly, with the foreign wine in his hand spilled all over himself. Su Li on the side folded her arms, looking as if it was a matter of course. Who is he? Gray murmured. At this moment, Xiong Yingjun took a gulp of foreign wine and said to Huizi with a smile, "How is it? My brother Su has a good eye for investment. I just checked the price of the Shenzhen series, it has risen to 4,000 a pair. And it's still rising." He seemed excited on the surface, but his heart was filled with turmoil. Xiong Yingjun knows what Huizai is capable of. This guy has been working as a middleman for 10 years and has become quite professional. In order to seize the right opportunities, Huizai has established information channels in various industries such as clothing, digital, entertainment, jade and jewelry. The company under his name is even known as the East China CIA. Even with such configuration, no one expected the counterattack of the Shenzhen series. This shows how reliable the information Su Li has is. Su Li, Su Li. Where do you get all these skills from? Xiong Yingjun thought silently. In fact, when he predicted the turmoil in the Nasdaq stock market, he saw that Su Li was not simple. But given his past impression of Su Li, Xiong Yingjun still didn't completely believe him. After all, 3 days ago, he was still a good-for-nothing who talked a lot and could do nothing. But after this prediction about the Shenzhen series, Xiong Yingjun no longer dared to underestimate Su Li. If he had been bolder in this investment, he would have had no problem making 7 or 8 million. But there is nothing to regret. Compared to these small amounts of money, Su Li is worth a fortune. Thinking of this, Xiong Yingjun immediately jumped off the table, hugged Su Li's shoulders, and said, "Brother Su, I really admire you. If you don't mind, take me with you when you work in the future, and I will definitely serve you at all times." Su Li smiled and said, "Boss Xiong, this is too serious. You were willing to lend me money when I was in the most difficult time. This is also because of our old friendship. So, if there is a good opportunity, I will definitely not forget you." But after hearing this, Xiong Yingjun became a little panicked. Because, from this investment by Li Ning Shenzhen, Su Li must make at least 1.7 million. Once these sneakers are sold, he will be able to pay off his debt completely. In this way, hasn't the favor been repaid? No. Now it's not him who owes me a favor, it's me who owes him a favor. Thinking of this, Xiong Yingjun said quickly, "Brother Su. First you saved my life, and now you help me make money. Do you think I will still be embarrassed to take your money? If you care about the debt, I will go to the company tomorrow to get the loan contract and tear it up in front of you." Su Li smiled and said, "Boss Xiong, let's put things in perspective. Don't call me Mr. Bear. Xiong Yingjun interrupted, "From now on, please call me by my nickname, Blind Bear, just like you did in high school." Su Li was suddenly at a loss whether to laugh or cry. This handsome Xiong is really good at handling things. In high school, they did call each other by nicknames. Su Li is a fox and Xiong Yingjun is a blind bear. Xiong Yingjun's emotional play reminded Su Li of many good memories. But then again, he was indeed waiting for Xiong Yingjun to express his opinion. If he did not propose to write off the debt today, then there would definitely be no further contact between him and him in the future. The goal was achieved, and Su Li said happily, "Then I won't be so hypocritical with you, let's drink." After that, he looked at Huizai who was sitting in his seat blankly, and asked Xiong Yingjun, "We have given him a trick in person, he won't take it to heart, right?" Xiong Yingjun chuckled, "Don't worry, we are all veterans, we won't act rashly just for a few million. He is just reshaping his worldview now." Su Li nodded with satisfaction. The purpose of doing this was to give Huizai a warning. After all, this man is the biggest middleman in East China. Putting aside the intelligence network, just the various supply channels would save Su Li a lot of time in the future if he could make friends with him. Only Huizai has a somewhat arrogant personality and dares to mock Xiong Yingjun in front of him. Such people are useless unless they are given a warning. After leaving the bar, Huizai finally recovered from the process of reshaping his worldview. Although he still hadn't figured out where he failed, the only thing he was sure of was Su Li is not a simple character. At the barbecue stall, Huizai held up a bottle of wusu and said, "Brother Su, I apologize for my previous attitude. You are the real boss. I, Chen Minghui, toast to you." He said, "Cheers," but he started showing off the bottle. Su Li was stunned and tried to dissuade him, "Mr. Chen, it's not necessary. This is a fatal wusu." The three of them just drank a lot of foreign liquor in the bar, and now they are showing off by mixing it with strong beer. Aren't they going to end up dead on the road? Xiong Yingjun stopped him and said, "This guy can drink a lot. If he really wants to show off his drinking skills, the most direct way to express it is to show off his drinking skills. Blind Bear, if you want to drink like this, I won't accompany you," Su Li said solemnly. He used to be a drunkard who liked to use alcohol to numb himself and forget his troubles. However, excessive drinking also made his emotional self-control worse and worse. The trigger for the divorce was that he beat Mu Shui after getting drunk. Okay, let's be more restrained next time." Xiong Yingjun nodded repeatedly and said to Huizai, "Don't drink like that. My brother Fox doesn't like it." Su Li sighed and said, "Don't accuse me of pretending. It was because of my alcoholism that I ruined my marriage." Yes. Xiong Yingjun and Huizai nodded at the same time, and subconsciously, they began to accept Su Li's teachings. Su Li nodded and said to Huizai, "Mr. Chen, the CBA's bloody victory over Sakura will take some time to ferment. Tomorrow, the price of the Shenzhen series should soar to 6,000 yuan per pair, and will continue to rise slowly. It is expected to reach its highest point after the college entrance examination, about 7,000 yuan. At this point, he looked at Xiong Yingjun and said, "Blind Xiong, we can't let Mr. Chen suffer too much loss, so let him buy it back at the price of 6,000 yuan. Brother Su is generous. I have no objection." Xiong Yingjun gave a thumbs up, because even if Su Li hadn't said that, he would have asked Huizai to buy it back. After all, he didn't lack the money, and relationships were more important. He said to Huizai, 1,000 pairs of shoes, a total of 6 million. Tomorrow, transfer 3 million to my brother Su. You can handle the recovery yourself. Huizai's eyes lit up. Su Li's prediction was exactly the same as what he thought. He quickly stood up and said gratefully, "Brother Su, just call me Huizai. You are really a man who can do great things. I will show you another bottle." Su Li smiled bitterly, No need. He asked Huizai to buy back the shares in order to win people's hearts. By the way, save some time and energy and get the money as soon as possible. Otherwise, he and Xiong Yingjun would have to arrange the sale of sneakers. The three of them chatted until late at night before Su Li returned to the rental house. According to Huizai, the money will arrive tomorrow morning. Now that you have money in hand, you should consider paying off your debts. In addition to the 700,000 yuan from Xiong Yingjun, he also borrowed money from many relatives and friends, including 100,000 yuan from Zhang Yue. Su Li planned to take this opportunity to pay back the debt to visit Mu Shui and Zhuo Er. Chapter 009, I'm afraid I will beat you to death. The next day at noon, 699 Art Park. Mu Shui, who had just finished lunch, was taking a walk in the park. She was wearing a lavender long dress, with elegant makeup and a calm temperament. Every corner I passed made the flowers and plants pale in comparison. All the men passing by her couldn't help but take a few more glances at her, stunned by her beauty. Mu Shui was already used to this. She just looked down at her phone with her brows slightly furrowed. That's strange, why did you return all the money? Looking at the payment message on her phone, Mu Shui was puzzled. She received a bonus today and immediately transferred 5,000 yuan to her Eagle Financial Management account. If you owe money to your family, you can still delay paying it a little. It makes me feel uneasy to owe money to Xiong Yingjun. Although he gave Su Li many opportunities to overdue, he was a man of the world after all. As soon as Mu Shui has money, she will transfer it to Xiong Financial Management to ensure her safety. But not long after he repaid the money this time, he received a remittance text message from Eagle Financial Management, and the remittance amount was as high as 60,000 yuan. Mu Shui did the math. This is exactly the total amount of repayments I made before. Xiong Yingjun actually got all the money back. Mu Shui tilde. At this time, Zhang Huaye rushed up from behind. Seeing Mu Shui's absent-minded look, she asked, "What's the matter?" Mu Shui said, "I don't know why, but Xiong Financial Management returned all the money I paid in." Zhang Huaye's eyes lit up. "Isn't this a good thing? Maybe your high school classmate will find his conscience and stop making things difficult for you and your daughter." Mu Shui rolled her eyes at Zhang Huaye and said, "You are dreaming. If he really had such a conscience, he would have gone bankrupt long ago." Zhang Huaye stamped her feet and said, "Oh, don't worry about Su Li's debt. This money was borrowed without your knowledge. After the divorce, you don't need to bear the responsibility of repaying it." Mu Shui shook her head. "Su Li and I are still husband and wife." When Zhang Huaye heard this, she shuddered and said, "Mu Shui, what you said is very dangerous. Have you not decided to divorce yet?" Mu Shui smiled. "You think too much, I'm not overthinking. I'm just afraid that you'll be soft-hearted." Zhang Huaye interrupted angrily, "What did you get from being with that bastard Su Li? The bank took away your house, and your car was sold. I won't talk about the money, the key point is that he beat you. How can you be happy with this kind of person? Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your. With such an incompetent father, how can she grow up healthily? In 2 years, she will go to elementary school. If the symptoms of depression don't improve, her whole life will be affected. Mu Shui, you have to let go of the past. You deserve a better life." Zhang Huaye said this with great confidence. Because when Mu Shui was in school, she was the white moonlight in everyone's heart. There are at least 5, 6 or 7 rich young men chasing after her, if not 80 or 90. Even though I have a child now, I have maintained a great figure. It's straight where it should be straight, thin where it should be thin, and curvy where it should be curvy. Plus her celebrity looks. With this condition, even if it is a second marriage, there are people scrambling to get it." Thinking of this, Zhang Huaye suddenly said, "Mu Shui, Yi Xingchen has been asking me about your situation these 2 days. He knows about your divorce and will probably take action soon. You might as well consider him." Hearing this, Mu Shui got goosebumps all over her body. No wonder I always felt like there was a pair of eyes staring at me, it turned out to be him. Yi Xingchen is also an alumnus of Shanghai College and had pursued her when he was in college. Now, they work in the same art education and training institution and have become colleagues. It's just that Yi Xingchen arrived earlier and has already been promoted to the position of director, making him the superior of Zhang Huaye and Mu Shui. Yi Xingchen has outstanding appearance and graceful manners. But Mu Shui didn't have a good impression of him. It's hard to describe this feeling. I just feel like he is living with a mask on, and it's not real. Seeing Mu Shui's disgusted expression, Zhang Huaye said, "What's wrong? Yi Xingchen is pretty good too. He's ambitious and talented. He started with a monthly salary of 3,000 and worked his way up to an annual salary of 500,000. I heard he bought his second house this year. What does that have to do with me?" Mu Shui interrupted impatiently, "Zhang Huaye, Su Li and I are still in the 30-day cooling-off period. Regardless of whether I will make a final decision, it is not reasonable to discuss this matter at this time." Zhang Huaye pouted, pulled Mu Shui's hand and shook it, saying, "Okay, I was wrong, don't be angry." Mu Shui smiled, already knowing what was going on. When Zhang Huaye entered the company, Yixingchen gave her a lot of help. The reason why Zhang Huaye mentioned this matter to him must be to help him get information. Why not take this opportunity to make things clear? She took a deep breath and said, Zhang Huaye, I just want to take good care of Zhuo now, and I won't consider other men anymore. You must convey my meaning to Yixingchen. If I refuse after he takes action, it will be very embarrassing. And it will also waste everyone's time. Forehead. Zhang Huaye was stunned for a moment, then smiled mischievously and said, I really can't hide anything from you. Mu Shui raised her calf and kicked Zhang Huaye's butt, saying half angrily and half dotingly, you gossipy girl. You just love to do these meaningless things. Evening. Su Li came to Minghulajing community carrying large and small bags. Zhang Huaye rented a house with a courtyard here. Su Li had been here once before and quickly found the house number. After ringing the doorbell, an old lady came out of the house. It was Zhang Huaye's mother. When Zhang Huaye and Mu Shui were at work, she was the one who took care of Zhuo. You are Su Li. Mother Zhang recognized Su Li at a glance and a look of vigilance appeared on her face. All his relatives and friends had heard about how Su Li had been a bad guy in the past. Zhang Huaye is Mu Shui's best friend, so she knows his situation even better. And her mother, naturally, would not give Su Li a good look. Did Mu Shui ask you to come? Mrs. Zhang did not open the iron gate of the courtyard, but asked through the iron fence. No. Su Li shook her head. There's no point in lying at this time. Mrs. Zhang will definitely call to ask about Mu Shui. Then what are you doing here? Zhang's mother asked with a squint, do you want to take Zhuo away? I tell you, no way. After saying that, Zhang's mother took out the key and locked the door. Then he picked up the yard broom and acted like a single man guarding the pass. Su Li shook her head repeatedly, I just came to see Zhuo, and by the way, Zhuo doesn't need you to watch. Mother Zhang interrupted, you know to look after your daughter now? What were you doing before? I heard everything about you from Zhang Huaye. You are quite capable. You scared your daughter into depression. Do you think you are worthy of having a daughter? Par. Auntie, I know I was wrong. I just came to see Zhuo. Su Li explained, holding up the bag in her hand, these are the snacks I bought for Zhuo, and the music box she has wanted for a long time. When Mrs. Zhang saw the big bag, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, but she still said vigilantly, then you stuff the things in through the iron gate. I won't let you in. I'm afraid I won't be able to help but beat you to death. Puff. Su Li almost laughed out loud. It seems that Zhang Huaye's temper must be inherited from her mother. In fact, Su Li had no intention of going in. He just wanted to take a look at Zhuo. However, this requirement may be difficult to meet. Because Zhang's mother had been a soldier when she was young, she was a decent person with a strong temper. In her eyes, she is a cancer left over from the old society. Gambling, alcoholism, beating wife, being mean to children. In her opinion, people like Su Li should be sentenced to death, and executed immediately. Thinking of this, he quickly took out a bank card from his pocket and said, Auntie, I'm here to pay back the money this time. There are 120,000 yuan in this card. 100,000 yuan is for Zhang Huaye, and the other 20,000 yuan is for you. Thank you for helping me take care of Mu Shui and Zhuo. How do you have so much money? Mother Zhang was slightly startled, and suddenly shouted, Su Li. Did you do something illegal? Chapter 010, Mom, I was careless. 2 days ago, Su Li was still a poor man with only 300 yuan in his pocket and a lot of debt. In the blink of an eye, he took out 120,000 yuan. 120,000 is not too much, but not too little either. In Hangzhou, where the average monthly salary is only 5,000 yuan, ordinary working-class people have to work hard for 3 or 4 years to save that much. It took Su Li less than 3 days to get the money. Zhang's mother subconsciously thought that the money was not clean. Su Li had anticipated this. He said to Zhang's mother in a gentle tone, Auntie, don't worry. I have invested with my classmates these 2 days and made some money. The investment notes and other things can be checked, and the source is definitely clean. When Su Li said this, Zhang's mother also stared at him, as if trying to find some clues from his eyes. That knife-like look also made Su Li shiver a little. As expected of Zhang's mother, she comes from a military background, her eyes are so sharp. After a moment of silence, Zhang's mother's eyes softened and she said in a gentle tone, It's good to make money, but you should also do your job properly. Don't think about soaring to the sky by speculation. At this moment, she remembered something and glared at Su Li, saying, "You bastard. You gave the money back to Zhang Huaye as soon as you had it. Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. Do you want her to say something good in front of your wife?" Su Li smiled awkwardly. "Auntie, I really can't hide it from you." Mother Zhang rolled her eyes and said, "You are wasting your time. If I were Zhang Huaye, I wouldn't say anything good for you. It's fine that you don't care about your family, you bastard. You get mad outside and you go home to vent your anger on your wife and kids. You are an incompetent coward, that's what I mean by a man like you. And not long ago, you even dared to attack Mu Shui. You are simply hopeless." Although Mu Shui appears to be quiet on the surface, she actually has the same fierce temper as my Zhang Huaye. She really loves you, which is why she can forgive you again and again. This time she has made up her mind to divorce, and we are all happy for her. Do you think we will still speak for you and push people into the fire pit? The speed and tone of Zhang's mother's speech are exactly the same as Zhang Huaye's. She knew that if she said these words, she would completely offend Su Li, and might even result in Zhang Huaye not being able to get back the 100,000 yuan she had lent her. But she still has to say it. Compared with Mu Shui's life, 100,000 yuan is nothing. Su Li, who was standing outside the iron gate, also lowered his head due to the spray. Mrs. Zhang's words were like slaps in the face, making him feel a burning pain on his face. After a while, he raised his head and said, "Auntie, you are right. In the past few years, it is also thanks to Zhang Huaye's care, otherwise Mu Shui would definitely not be able to hold on." After that, he handed over the bank card again. "Auntie, Mu Shui is very strong-willed. She must be feeling uneasy because she owes Zhang Huaye money, so I thought I should pay back the money here first." When Mrs. Zhang heard this, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. According to his daughter Zhang Huaye, Su Li is a man with a bad temper and a small mind. "But I have scolded him like this, but I haven't lost my temper yet. Could it be that he is acting? What conspiracy is he planning?" Just as Mrs. Zhang's eyes were rolling, the window of the house was suddenly pushed open, and a chubby little face poked out. "Dad! It's really you!" Su Juor, with two ponytails, lay on the windowsill and shouted in surprise, with two shallow dimples on her face when she smiled. This child really doesn't bear grudges. Mother Zhang looked back at Su Juor, shook her head bitterly, and said to Su Li, "God must be blind. How could such a lovely child become your daughter? How could you, a bastard, bear to be mean to her?" "Auntie, stop scolding." Su Li smiled bitterly, he still wanted to save some face in front of his daughter. Seeing Su Juo's innocent eyes, Zhang's mother softened her heart. She didn't want to drive the father away in front of the child. So he picked up the broom and pretended to sweep the yard, but his eyes were still fixed on Su Li. If he dared to say something like, "Do you want to go with Dad?" she would definitely blow him with a broom. Su Li also took this opportunity to communicate with her daughter, "Juor, have you been obedient these days?" Juor nodded seriously. Grandma Zhang and Aunt Zhang both liked Juor very much. At this point, her little mouth suddenly pursed, and she said sadly, "Does Daddy not like Juor anymore? He doesn't even stay with me and Mommy anymore." Su Li's heart suddenly ached, and she quickly said, "How could that be? Dad loves you and Mom the most. Look, Dad bought you a lot of delicious food, including your favorite cheese and the music box you always wanted." Music box. Juor's big eyes suddenly brightened up. Dad is the best. Juor and Mommy both want a music box. Looking at her daughter's happy expression, Su Li's eyes turned red. Like Mu Shui, Juor is very sensitive to music. AR music box while watching TV. This music box can not only play music, but also project various 3D animations. Not to mention Juor, even Mu Shui likes her very much. But I thought it was too expensive at the time and couldn't bear to buy it for my mother and daughter. Now that I think about it, I was such an asshole. He and his clients spend their days drinking and partying outside, spending money in large amounts. When it comes to my family, they are reluctant to spend even a few $100s. No wonder Mu Shui was completely desperate about herself. Just as she was thinking, Su Juor asked again, "Dad, why don't you come in? Is it Grandma who won't let you in?" Hearing this, Su Li and Zhang's mother were both stunned. Mother Zhang looked a little embarrassed. She didn't dare to let Su Li in, but she didn't want to make the child sad. Fortunately, Su Li was quick-witted and said, "Juor, Dad just came back from outside and is very dirty. Grandma is cleaning, and I can't cause trouble for her." Oh. Juor nodded. Dad is as sensible as Juor, both are good children. Mother Zhang looked at Su Li with a smile on her face. Su Li also smiled slightly and continued chatting with Juor. In just half an hour, he had spoken more to Juor than he had in the past 4 years combined. Juor was a little timid at first. Su Li asked and she answered. There has always been a gap between the two of them, which is all due to the sins Su Li had committed before. But later on, Juor became more relaxed and started pestering Su Li to tell her stories. But the more Juor acted intimate, the more Su Li blamed herself. As they talked, his eyes started to turn red. Finally, he choked up and said to Juor, Juor, Daddy still has work to do, so I won't accompany you today. Be obedient at Grandma's house, okay? Dad, don't go. Su Juor, who was giggling just a second ago, immediately pouts and is about to cry when she hears that Su Li is leaving. Just when Su Li was at a loss, Zhang's mother said, Juor, your dad is going to make money. He will buy you more delicious and fun things with the money. As long as you are obedient, your dad will come to see you soon. Hearing Zhang's mother's comfort, Su Juor sniffed and asked Su Li, will Dad come tomorrow? Su Li smiled slightly. Mom is still angry with Dad, please help me to coax Mom, and when she is coaxed well, Dad will come. Yes. Juor will go and comfort Mom. Daddy also has to be obedient and don't make Mom angry in the future. Juor, a smart little girl, said seriously. What you bastard? Mother Zhang lowered her voice and glared at Su Li. It seems like this guy is not here to ask Zhang Huaye to be his lobbyist. Instead, let his daughter be the lobbyist. Mom, I was careless. Su Li smiled, put the bank card into the bag, stuffed the bag into the iron gate, and said, Auntie, please give these to Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye, I'm leaving first Tilda. Go away. I get angry when I see you, a sly guy. Zhang's mother symbolically drove them away with a broom, while Su Li walked away with a smile on her face. When Su Li walked away, she looked at Juor again. The little girl was still lying on the windowsill, watching her father leave. Seeing this, Zhang's mother couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. She looked at Su Li's back as he walked away, and muttered in a very iron-fisted way, I'd better help this bastard. How miserable it would be for the child if he didn't have a father. Chapter 011, Is Dad going to die? It was 10 o'clock in the evening when Zhang Huaye and Mu Shui, who worked 996, got off work and went home. At this time, Zhang's mother had just coaxed Su Juor to sleep. Mu Shui seemed a little disappointed because she couldn't say good night to her daughter. Zhang Huaye couldn't help but sigh, although Juor has an unreliable father, she has a mother like you who loves her. This is a blessing in disguise. Mu Shui smiled and said, look at what you said. Is there any mother in the world who doesn't love her children? When you have children, you will be like me. Zhang Yan pursed her lips and said, come on, I don't even have a man. And a child. At this point, she glanced at Mu Shui unconsciously and praised, speaking of your figure, you don't look like someone who has given birth to a child. The breasts are firm, the waist is thin, and the butt is perky. I wish I were a man, so that Su Li wouldn't have gotten it so easily. Mu Shui's pretty face flushed and she glared at Zhang Huaye, you are already 27 years old and still so frivolous. If you were really a man, I wouldn't let you get away with it. Zhang Huaye smiled and picked up a piece of cheese candy on the coffee table and said, girl, smile for me and I'll give you a piece of cheese Tilda. Mu Shui smiled and pushed Zhang Huaye away, go away. You pervert. The two were arguing when Mu Shui's gaze suddenly paused. He took the cheese from Zhang Huaye's hand, took a closer look, and asked, did you buy this cheese candy? Zhang Huaye shrugged, no, my mother bought it for Juor, right? Didn't you say Juor likes to eat this? Mu Shui shook her head, the cheese in this shop is made and sold on the spot. You need to order it online in advance. Your mother shouldn't do this, right? Zhang Huaye nodded, yes, my mother doesn't even understand WeChat payment. Could it be? Mu Shui's eyes suddenly widened as she thought of something. At this time, Zhang's mother came out of the room and said, Su Li bought it. What? Upon hearing this, Zhang Huaye and Mu Shui were stunned. Zhang Huaye stood up suddenly and asked, Su Li is here? Did you let him in? Mother Zhang glanced at Mu Shui and did not answer. Zhang Huaye thought her mother had agreed, and she stamped her feet in anger. Mom! How could you let Su Li in? What if he takes Juor away? Many men who want to fight for custody do this. Shut up. Zhang's mother glared at Zhang Huaye and said, "What if you wake up the child by yelling so loudly?" Zhang Huaye shuddered and lowered her voice and said, "Mom, didn't I tell you before I left? You must not let Su Li into their house." Mother Zhang ignored her and took out a bank card instead, saying, "There are 120,000 yuan in this card. 100,000 yuan is the money Su Li is paying you back, and 20,000 yuan is for Juor. You can transfer it to Mu Shui yourself." 120,000. Zhang Huaye was stunned and looked at Mu Shui. Mu Shui also became nervous. He is bankrupt. Where does he get so much money? He said he made the money by investing with his classmates, Zhang's mother replied. Mu Shui shook her head vigorously. "My former colleagues and classmates all treated him as a plague when they saw him. How could they possibly bring him to invest?" Zhang Huaye frowned and asked, "Did he go gambling again?" "I wish he was gambling." Mu Shui said somewhat collapsedly, and quickly took out her cell phone to call Su Li. At this moment, she was really scared. "It's only been 2 days since we separated. Where does Su Li make so much money? Is there any other possibility besides taking the wrong path? If it were just gambling. But what if?" The more scared Mu Shui became, the more she couldn't even hold her phone. If Su Li embarks on the path of crime, how will she explain to her parents-in-law and Juor? At this time, Zhang's mother came forward and said gently, "Xie Xue, don't worry. Back then, even the enemy spies couldn't deceive me. How could Su Li have this ability? But, Auntie, I'm so scared. If Su Li really goes astray, what will happen to my parents-in-law?" Mu Shui put down her phone and tears couldn't stop flowing. Seeing Mu Shui like this, Zhang Huaye felt very distressed and quickly advised, "Don't be afraid, Mu Shui. What my mother said is true. I have never lied since I was a child." Mother Zhang took Mu Shui's hand, patted it and said, "Mu Shui, you are a kind child. It's really rare that you can still consider your parents-in-law. It's his blessing that Su Li found you." Mother Zhang paused and continued, "Although I am not very familiar with Su Li, the feeling he gave me today is not as bad as Zhang Huaye said. I can see remorse and responsibility in his eyes." Upon hearing this, Zhang Huaye quickly reminded, "Mom, Su Li is a good actor. I have been deceived by him several times. Isn't it normal for you to be cheated? Don't you know how stupid you are?" Zhang's mother scolded. Mu Shui wiped her tears and said, "Aunt, what Zhang Huaye said is right. Su Li's nickname is Fox, and he is very cunning. In order to borrow money from his family, he can act out any trick. I have slept in the same bed with him for 4 years, and I can't tell the truth from the false." Unexpectedly, when Zhang's mother heard this, she laughed, "Fox. Har har. Su Li is a bit cunning. He even outwitted me today." After that, she glanced at the room where Juor was sleeping, and then turned to Mu Shui and said earnestly, "Xie Xue, Zhang Huaye has told me about what you have experienced. But I still want to advise you, for Juor, you should seriously consider the divorce." "Mom. You." Zhang Huaye wanted to say something, but was glared back by Zhang's mother. Mother Zhang continued to say to Mu Shui, "My eyes are sharp. I can tell whether Su Li is acting or not. Today, the father and daughter got along very happily. If you still have feelings for Su Li, you might as well try to test him. After all, a child cannot live without a father." Hearing this, Mu Shui also looked towards the room, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. How could she bear to let Juor be without a father? Isn't it true that Juor's depression was caused by her father scaring her? If Juor continues to live with Su Li, her condition may worsen. But if they get divorced, can an incomplete family really allow Juor to grow up healthily? Thinking of this, Mu Shui felt exhausted and at a loss. But at this moment, the door suddenly opened, and Juor ran out of the room barefoot, holding up a beautiful music box and shouting, "Mom! Mom! Listen! Listen!" The 3 people in the living room were all stunned. Mu Shui scolded, "Juor! Why are you still playing with your toys instead of going to bed?" Facing her mother's scolding, Juor did not back off, but instead shouted excitedly, "This music box contains my father's voice." Mu Shui frowned, looked at the music box in her daughter's hand, and her body trembled slightly. "Isn't this the music box that I have liked for a long time?" The lid of the music box has been opened, and a pair of 3D projected figures are dancing on the miniature stage. Su Li's pre-recorded audio also slowly flowed out along with their dance. "Mu Shui, on the day I filed for divorce, I had a 30-year dream. In that dream, I lost you and Juor, lost all my family members, and finally died alone. After waking up from the dream, I felt very regretful and scared. I don't want this dream to happen again. I hope you can give me a chance to start a new life. Just treat the past Suli as dead. Tears fell, Mushui covered her mouth tightly to prevent herself from crying in front of Juor. At this moment, she simply hated Suli. I had just made up my mind to leave, and he came out and said such nonsense. The scary thing is, I just happened to fall for it. Suli, Suli. Can you please let me go? Mushui broke down and screamed in her heart. At this time, Juor suddenly burst into tears. Mom! Is Daddy saying his last words? Is he going to die? I don't want Daddy to die. What kind of top-level understanding is this? Looking at Juor, who was crying out of breath, Zhang Huaye didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mushui at the side was also at a loss. What the hell is this? She was so angry that she took out her cell phone and almost shouted to send a voice message. Suli? Are you sick? Why did you record that kind of thing on the music box? When Juor heard it, she thought her father was dead. Chapter 012. Are you still obsessed with Suli? Inside the rental house. Suli lay on the bed, listening to Mushui's angry curse. A smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Below the angry voice message, there were 2 photos of Juor. The adorable look with tears and snot all over his face was enough to melt Suli's heart. Same as before. Mushui even shared photos of Juor with me to prove that she still acknowledges that I am Juor's father. Thinking of this, Suli excitedly typed, "See, Juor can't leave me. I can't leave you either. Let's forget about the divorce, right? The fallen flowers have feelings, but I don't know whether the flowing water has feelings." Mushui did not reply to this message. However, Suli was not in a hurry. Things are moving in the right direction and he still has plenty of time. After paying off all the debts and favors he owes, he will start from the little things to make up for what he has owed to Mushui and Juor over the years. The next day, Suli came to Eagle Financial Management in high spirits. Seeing Suli coming, Xiong Yingjun quickly stopped the work at hand and took out an agreement from the drawer. "Brother Su, I was just looking for you. This is the termination agreement for the loan contract. Just sign it and we'll be done." At this point, Xiong Yingjun felt that the wording was wrong, and quickly changed his words. "Sign it, and you will have nothing to worry about. From now on, just lead your brother forward." That's thoughtful. Suli was not polite. After reading the agreement carefully, he signed it directly. After signing, he said to Xiong Yingjun, "Print the attachment of the agreement and send a copy to Mushui." "Okay, I'll find time to deliver it myself." Xiong Yingjun took the agreement with both hands and told his assistant to keep it carefully and arrange the itinerary. Then, he asked Suli, "Brother Su, do you have any other instructions?" Suli nodded and said, "I have some investment ideas and would like to discuss them with you." Xiong Yingjun was startled, and almost couldn't suppress his ecstasy. He quickly sent his assistant away, and then whispered to Suli, "Where is Brother Su going to take his brother to make a fortune this time?" Suli said, "Crude oil and natural gas futures." Xiong Yingjun asked, "How to play? Go long or go short?" "I must be long." "How much money do I have?" Suli smiled bitterly and said, "I will transfer all the 2.5 million I can currently use to you. You will help me buy 1.25 million of crude oil and 1.25 million of natural gas, both with 10 times leverage." When Xiong Yingjun heard that Suli had taken out so much money to buy crude oil and natural gas, and had added 10 times leverage, he was shocked and said, "Brother Su, this is 10 times leverage. At that time, as long as the price drops a little bit, you will lose your margin. If the margin cannot be renewed, all your money will be forcibly cleared. This is like licking blood on the tip of a knife. If you are not careful, you will lose everything." Suli nodded calmly. "In the next month, one of crude oil and natural gas will definitely surge. Even if one of them surges, the other one will still be rising, so we won't lose much. If neither of them surges, we'll make a lot of money." Suli did not tell all the truth she knew. In fact, both crude oil and natural gas will skyrocket. But Suli didn't want to give Xiong Yingjun the impression of a charlatan. The best thing would be to be able to express a feeling of guessing it right, but not completely. At this time, Xiong Yingjun's expression also became serious. He was ready to follow Suli in investing. But He's going to put all his assets into it right from the start, and use 10 times leverage? Are you sure you're not gambling? Thinking of this, he looked up and asked, the price of natural gas has been very stable recently, which is not a big problem, but crude oil has been rising for a long time. If it rises again, won't the world be in chaos? Su Li nodded, of course. What do you mean? Xiong Yingjun was puzzled. Su Li didn't want to explain too much, so he just said 8 words, when the cannon goes off, it's worth a ton of gold. Xiong Yingjun was a little confused at first. After chewing the 8 characters in his mouth, he stood up suddenly. You mean, you want to fight? I didn't say anything. Su Li made a gesture to keep quiet and said, this time, I won't persuade you to invest, because I'm not sure about it either. It's up to you. He said that on purpose. The international situation is changing rapidly. It would be very suspicious if even this could be predicted with 100% certainty. At this time, Xiong Yingjuan's eyes had become serious. Without certain inside information, no one would dare to gamble on such things. Xiong Yingjun looked at Su Li. His eyes were deep and calm. The temperament of Chen Zhu in his heart was like he was waiting for an east wind. Why does this feel like Zhuge Wuhou? Xiong Yingjun said in his heart. For a moment, he really wanted to go all in with Su Li. But after some ideological struggle, reason still occupied the upper hand in his mind. It's not that he doesn't trust Su Li. But I don't want to easily gamble my entire life and property. Thinking of this, Xiong Yingjun said, Brother Su, you have already gone all in, so you must be sure of it. I happen to have 6 million in pocket money on hand, let me take it out and play with you. Su Li said in a joking tone, Boss Xiong is very generous. But didn't you say last time that you didn't want the investment amount to be larger than mine? When Xiong Yingjun heard Su Li calling him Boss Xiong, he thought he was unhappy, so he quickly said, Brother Su, I was a little panicked last time, don't mind it. Su Li shook her head, why would I mind? We are all in the same boat. Of course I hope you can make more money. Xiong Yingjuan's eyes rolled around, and he immediately understood what was meant. He said to Su Li seriously, if you lose money on this investment, it's my responsibility. If you make a profit, I'll give you a 40% dividend. Blind bear, so generous. Su Li nodded with satisfaction. Xiong Yingjun breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Su Li calling him by his nickname. If this investment is still successful, then let alone dividends. Xiong Yingjun even wanted to give shares to Su Li directly. After the two finished chatting, Su Li called Weizai again. Mainly talked about 2 things. The first is to let Weizai find some manufacturers that can produce electric blankets, the more the better. This is the next step after investing in futures. This winter, some countries that lack natural gas will be very cold. The second thing is to get a few bottles of 30-year-old Feichin Maotai. There is not much work these days, so Su Li plans to go back to her hometown. I can no longer hide my divorce from my parents. If you tell the truth, you may get help from your family. After arranging everything, Su Li left Eagle Financial Management and prepared to find teacher Tony to sort herself out. Tianyu Education and Training Center. As soon as she arrived at the company in the morning, Mu Shui was called to the office by Director Yi Xingchen. Facing this handsome man in a suit and tie, Mu Shui felt uncomfortable all over. Back then at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music, Yi Xingchen was an absolute star. Because he always has a smile on his face. He is funny, humorous, enthusiastic and sunny. I don't know how many junior and senior schoolmates have a crush on him. Now he is even more steady and elegant. But Mu Shui felt that he was becoming more and more greasy. When at work, Yi Xingchen would always pretend to casually glance at her chest. Mu Shui already had both physical and psychological aversion to this prudish hypocrite. If the training center hadn't offered a good salary, she would have quit long ago. After briefly chatting about work, Yi Xingchen said, Mu Shui, I will be transferred to Donghai City to be the vice president in the second half of the year. His voice was still so low, with a slight bubbling sound. Well, congratulations to Director Yi on his promotion. Mu Shui nodded. Yi Xingchen raised his head slightly, looked into Mu Shui's eyes and said, have you ever thought about developing in the East China Sea? Mu Shui was slightly stunned, and instantly understood what Yi Xingchen was up to. She was silent for a moment and said, Director Yi, the pressure in Donghai City is too great. I also have to take care of my daughter and may not be able to adapt to the fast-paced life. Yi Xingchen smiled and said, after we go to Donghai, I will promote you to be the deputy director there, with an annual salary of 400,000. You can hire an aunt to take care of Juor. Besides, I will not assign you too many work tasks. Annual salary 400,000. That's 30,000 a month. Mu Shue's heart trembled. She works in the company and her monthly salary is only 6,000. Although it is not too low, it is definitely not enough to give Juor a good life. Her biggest wish is to let Juor live a good life. But she understood, there is no free lunch in the world. There are so many people in the company, but Yi Xingchen chose to promote himself. Naturally, his motives are not pure. Thinking of this, Mu Shue shook her head and said, "Thank you Director Yi for your support, but I am definitely not qualified for the job of deputy director. You should. Don't be modest. I know your abilities." Yi Xingchen raised his hand to interrupt, looked at Mu Shue deeply, and said, "Mu Shue, are you still obsessed with Su Li?" Chapter 013, A Vicious Plan That Kills Two Birds with One Stone. Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Mu Shue's eyes immediately turned cold. "Director Yi, this has nothing to do with work, right?" Yi Xingchen smiled and said, "It has nothing to do with work, but I am not only your boss, but also your classmate. Can't I care about you?" Seeing the upturned corner of the mouth, Mu Shue couldn't help but frowned. She felt sick in her heart, but she couldn't show it. Seeing that Mu Shue was silent, Yi Xingchen continued, "Mu Shue, you are an excellent woman, and Su Li is not worthy of you at all. I am happy for you from the bottom of my heart when I heard the news of your divorce. You are too happy too soon." Mu Shue said coldly, "Su Li and I just applied for a divorce, and we are still husband and wife." Yi Xingchen was stunned. "Mu Shue, I know you are not living well. Su Li is a waste. You deserve a better life." Mu Shue shook her head, with a hint of anger in her eyes, and said, "That has nothing to do with Director Yi. If there is nothing else, I will go to work first." Seeing Mu Shue getting angry, Yi Xingchen could only smile awkwardly. "Okay, go and do your work first, we'll talk about this later." Mu Shue didn't say much, just stood up and walked out of the office. After Mu Shue left, Yi Xingchen's pretentious smile completely collapsed. He pounded his fist on the table and said angrily, "Why am I inferior to that loser Su Li? Oh my! What you can't get will always make you restless tilder." At this time, a heavily made-up woman walked into the office. After closing the door, she smiled sweetly at Yi Xingchen. This woman is the sales manager of the training center, Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu walked straight to Yi Xingchen's side and sat down on the desk seductively. Yi Xingchen's eyes were immediately attracted by the plump thighs in black stockings, and his whole mental outlook changed drastically. From a righteous and elegant gentleman, he turned into a lewd man with lustful eyes. Unfortunately, although the king of Xiong has intentions, the water is merciless. After admiring the beautiful legs for a while, Yi Xingchen leaned back in his chair and said helplessly, "TSK, she's just a naive girl." Xiao Yu rolled her eyes. "We're about to get a divorce, but she's still thinking about paying off her husband's debts. People like her deserve domestic violence." Yi Xingchen put his hand on Xiao Yu's thigh and squeezed it hard. "That's better than you, a slut who cuckolds your husband, right?" "Hey, stop it." Xiao Yu cried out in pain, slapped Yi Xingchen's hand away, and said, "I have a way to make Mu Shue go to the East China Sea with you obediently, but..." Yi Xingchen's eyes lit up. "If you have any requests, just tell me." Xiao Yu smiled charmingly. "When you go to Donghai, our position as director will be vacant. Has Mr. Yi found a suitable successor?" Yi Xingchen understood immediately and said, "The successor is naturally you, my future director Xiao. It's not in vain that I serve you tilder." Xiao Yu smiled happily. She leaned down and said to Yi Xingchen, "If you want Mu Shue to go with you, it's very simple. All you have to do is make sure she can't stay in our Hangzhou branch." "How to do it?" Yi Xingchen raised his eyebrows. Xiao Yu whispered, "Doesn't Mu Shue's husband owe a debt? We can find a few debt collectors to go to the company and make a scene, then have our colleagues take a video and post it on WeChat Moments." Yi Xingchen interrupted, "No, the head office will fire her if she does that. Doesn't this give you a chance to show off?" Xiao Yu raised her lips and said, "From a legal and moral point of view, Mu Shue is also a victim. As long as you are willing to stand up and protect her, the head office will not be too harsh. But she will definitely not be able to stay in our Hangzhou branch." At this point, Xiao Yu pretended to be sympathetic and said, "Hey, Mu Shue is such a pitiful woman. Not only was she abused by her husband, but she also lost her job and has a daughter to support. Tell me, what should she do? Hearing this, Yi Xingchen also smiled. He understood. This is a vicious plan that kills two birds with one stone. This will make Mu Shui even more disappointed with Su Li. It could also put her in the embarrassing situation of being unemployed. Wouldn't I be the only one who can save her then? On the one hand, their source of income was cut off, and the mother and daughter were left alone and helpless. On the other hand, you can earn 400,000 yuan a year and start a new life. Even a fool can answer this kind of multiple-choice question, right? As long as Mu Shui can be brought to the East China Sea, he has 100 ways to capture her. Thinking of this, Yi Xingchen couldn't help but get a little excited, but he still calmly asked the question, find someone to pretend to be a debt collector, what if he is found out? I didn't say I wanted to find someone to impersonate you. Xiao Yu shrugged and smiled mysteriously. A group of brothers I know are working part-time for Xiongning Financial Management. It is reasonable to ask them to remind the debtors to pay back the money in the name of the company, right? SKY shape. Under the careful care of teacher Tony, Su Li changed back to her refreshing short and messy hairstyle. When he started his business, he deliberately slicked back his hair to make himself look more stable. Mu Shui didn't say it, but she really didn't like it in her heart. But there is no way. Who makes this society intolerant of individuality? The slicked back hairstyle may not suit Su Li, but it will never go wrong. We've known each other for 4 years, and I still think this hairstyle suits you best. Teacher Tony sprayed styling water on Su Li's head and sighed, you looked like a greasy salesman with your slicked back hair before. Su Li smiled and said, yes, I won't have a slicked back hair anymore. I don't need to please anyone now. I can be myself to my heart's content. Teacher Tony was stunned. From the tone of your voice, are you financially free? Su Li said, I am not financially free yet, but I don't worry about wealth anymore. Just lie down, it's so literary. Teacher Tony pursed his lips. Just then, a phone call came. Su Li took a look and saw that it was Zhang Huaye's call, so she quickly picked up the phone. As soon as the call was connected, Zhang Huaye's loud voice burst out immediately. Su Li? What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to take care of your debts? Now a bunch of thugs come to the company to ask Mu Shui for debts. How can she live like this? If you're a man, just come here and die. Zhang Huaye. Don't let him come over. These guys are ferocious. While Zhang Huaye was speaking, Mu Shui was interrupting. But at this moment, Su Li just felt confused. Although I owe a lot of debt, there are only a few creditors. Except for Eagle Financial Management, they are all relatives, friends, classmates and colleagues. These people wouldn't call on thugs to collect the debts violently, right? Su Li asked Zhang Huaye, did these people say where they are from? They said they were from Eagle Financial Management. They don't look like good people. Zhang Huaye replied. Eagle Financial Management. Su Li thought that this matter was not simple. After giving Zhang Huaye a few instructions, he immediately contacted Xiong Yingjun. Brother Su, what's up? Xiong Yingjun's lazy voice came from the other end of the phone. Su Li suppressed her emotions and asked, Blind Xiong, your men are asking Mu Shui for money in her company. What's going on? Har. Xiong Yingjun was stunned and said, that's impossible. I was the one who handled your debt personally, and the whole company knows that you don't have to pay it back. Moreover, without my instructions, the collection team will not come to your door. Su Li clenched her fists and reminded, you'd better find someone to confirm it. Perhaps he heard the anger in Su Li's tone. Xiong Yingjun quickly said, Brother Su, don't worry. I will go to my sister-in-law's workplace to check it out in person. Let's see who is so desperate. Chapter 014, My Wife, Don't Worry About Me. At this time, 699 Art Park. 6 spirited young men were gathering at the gate of the teaching and training center. They don't enter the company and don't talk. However, he looked at everyone who came in and out of the training center with unfriendly eyes. Many visiting parents of students frowned when they saw them, wondering how this educational institution could be involved with such second-rate people in society. The staff of the teaching and training center also felt extremely troubled by this. It's really annoying. My clients were scared away by those hooligans. With these shady people hanging around the door, the company's reputation will be seriously affected. Everyone was talking at once, and all looked at Mu Shui. The gang of thugs just now explained their purpose, and now everyone in the company knows that her husband owes high-interest loans. Seeing the concerned or complaining looks from her colleagues, Mu Shui couldn't sit still anymore. After taking a deep breath, she walked towards the door. Mu Shui! Don't go! Zhang Huaye held Mu Shui back and said, "It's not the money you owe, let Su Li settle it." Mu Shui shook her head and said, "These people must have come to me because they couldn't find Su Li. He won't come, and even if he comes, he can't solve any problems. He is such a scum." Zhang Huaye said angrily. Mu Shui said, "Okay, let's find a way to get these people to leave first, otherwise it will affect the operation of the company." Zhang Huaye sighed, "I'll go with you." The two of them arrived at the company's door, and several hooligans squatting outside immediately stood up. The yellow-haired leader's eyes lit up and he smiled, "Hey, who is my sister-in-law?" "I'm Mu Shui." Mu Shui pretended to be calm. "Not bad, my brother Su is very lucky." Huang Mao licked his lips and said, "However, the money he owes has been overdue for a long time. Shouldn't he pay it back?" Seeing the unfriendly look from the yellow-haired man, Mu Shui instinctively took a step back, but still mustered up the courage to say, "I also wanted to ask you, I deposit 5,000 yuan into Xiaoning Financial Management every month, and the total amount is more than 60,000 yuan. But I don't know why you returned all the money." Hearing this, Huang Mao was stunned for half a second. It seemed that he was completely unaware of what Mu Shui said. After a moment's silence, he said, "You're paying too little. 5,000 a month, do you think it's your mortgage payment? If you don't settle the 700,000 yuan account today, we'll go home with you." Mu Shui shuddered, "How can I come up with so much money all at once? You have to give me some time to raise it." She was really panicked. Debt collection does not necessarily require violence, but these thugs have a lot of disgusting methods. If they were allowed to make a scene in front of Juor, it would have a very serious impact on the child's physical and mental health. "Give you time." The yellow-haired man sneered, looked at Mu Shui from head to toe, and said, "It's not that we can't give her some time. If my sister-in-law is willing to accompany us to the bar, I might be able to ask the company for some leniency." Hearing this, Zhang Huaye couldn't stand it anymore and started to curse. "What bullshit are you talking about? If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "Call the police." Huang Mao blew his bangs and said, "Report it. We didn't do anything. Is debt collection illegal?" Hearing this, Zhang Huaye was also stunned. These thugs were obviously trained. They were not armed and did not behave in an aggressive manner. Even if we call the police, they can only persuade them to disperse. But even if they disband, they will come back. In the long run, it will definitely affect the company's operations, and Mu Shui may also be fired. At this moment, a voice came, "Where did this little thug come from? How dare you act wild here?" When everyone looked, they saw that it was Yi Xingchen and Xiao Yu. Yi Xingchen walked quickly to Mu Shui and said, "I just went out to do some work. On the way, I learned that your creditor was causing trouble in the company, so I rushed back. Are you okay?" Mu Shui shook her head, not knowing what to say. Yi Xingchen said softly, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." After that, he stood in front of Mu Shui and said to the gangsters, "I don't care where you guys are from, get out of here right now. You should be thankful that this is a society ruled by law, otherwise I can deal with you with just one phone call." After hearing this, the colleagues who were watching behind started talking. "Director Yi is so handsome. This is boyfriend power. Compared to Director Yi, Mu Shui's husband is a piece of shit. He borrowed the money himself, but he didn't show up, and let his wife bear all this. Compared to anyone, he is nothing. I don't know how he deserves to have a wife as beautiful as Mu Shui. He is like a flower stuck in cow dung." After hearing these words, Yi Xingchen and Xiao Yu looked at each other, and both of them revealed an imperceptible look of pride. When the debt collectors saw Yi Xingchen show up, their attitude immediately softened a lot. Next, it's time to follow the script and give the employer a chance to perform. He smiled and said to Mu Shui, "Sister-in-law, we are also working, and we don't want to embarrass you. Just give me an estimate, how long will it take to raise the money?" Mu Shui was slightly stunned and didn't know how to answer for a moment. "I am only getting a fixed salary and I can't raise much money in a short period of time." At this time, Yi Xingchen said, "Mu Shui, if you need help, just ask. I have 600,000 in cash and can help you with it." Hearing this, all colleagues were moved. "Is Director Yi such a nice person? He gives me 600,000 just like that. Don't you know? Director Yi and Mu Shui were college classmates, and Mu Shui has always been his goddess. How infatuated. She actually waited until now. Besides, Mu Shui is about to get divorced, so Director Yi has a chance. The gossiping spirits of her colleagues were aroused, but Mu Shui was embarrassed. She inexplicably felt like she had fallen into a trap. Just as she was thinking about how to reject Yi Xingchen, she heard a familiar voice. Yi Xingchen, my wife, please don't worry about her. Mu Shui, Zhang Huaiye, Yi Xingchen and a group of onlookers were all startled at the same time and looked into the distance. I saw two men walking towards me from a distance. One is tall, the other is burly. It was Su Li and Xiong Yingjun who had hurried over. Although there were only two of them, they walked out with the momentum of a mighty army. When Yi Xingchen saw Su Li appear, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. He quickly took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Xiao Yu. Why is he here? He shouldn't dare to come. Xiao Yu replied, why are you panicking? The money he owes to Xiongying Financial Management is not fake. It's just the right time to make him look bad. Only after seeing the news did Yi Xingchen calm down. Xiao Yu is right. This is a great opportunity to ridicule Su Li in front of Mu Shui. Chapter 015, Putting it on Big Brother's face. Facing everyone's gaze. Su Li walked to the gate of the teaching and training center. When I looked at Mu Shui, I felt my nose a little sour. This was the first time the two met after filing for divorce. It's only been 4 days, but it feels like a lifetime ago. At this moment, Mu Shui's eyes were red and tears were welling up in them. It seemed that the moment he saw Su Li, all the grievances in his heart that had nowhere to vent came out all at once. Just as the two of them stared at each other in silence, Yi Xingchen spoke up, Su Li. I am helping Mu Shui, not you. Why do you reject my kindness? If you have the ability to repay the debt, would you let the creditor come to Mu Shui's company to cause trouble? Seeing Yi Xingchen attacking Su Li, Mu Shui quickly said, Director Yi. This is my family matter. No. I must vent your anger today. Yi Xingchen said softly. Yi Xingchen's promotion to vice president was not only based on his professional ability. As a man who is adept at handling various areas of society, he knows that in order to accomplish something, he must have a mass base and an advantage in public opinion. Taking advantage of the presence of so many people, he could completely elevate himself by belittling Su Li, and then establish a mass base and public opinion advantage in pursuing Mu Shui. By then, everyone in the company will be on your side. People who have a good relationship with Mu Shui will actively persuade her to choose them. In such an environment, Mu Shui will be taken down by him sooner or later. Logically, I shouldn't be nosy. Yi Xingchen stood on the steps, looking down at Su Li, and said, but if these hooligans come to the company to cause trouble every other day, Mu Shui will definitely be fired. The mother and daughter have been hurt enough by you. Please don't refuse help from others on their behalf for your worthless face. You are not qualified. Yi Xingchen's words resonated with his colleagues. Director Yi is right. Mu Shui will soon be a single mother. This job is so important to her. You are too selfish to care about your face when you are not capable of taking good care of your wife and daughter. Why don't you divorce this selfish man and keep him for the new year? My colleagues were talking to each other. They all think they are the righteous party and completely disregard the feelings of the parties involved. But at this moment, Mu Shui was already sneering in her heart. She knew that Yi Xingchen was not helping her at all, but was deliberately trying to embarrass her. Yi Xingchen, what kind of good person are you? Su Li is not worthy of me, but you are? Thinking of this, Mu Shui wanted to slap Yi Xingchen. She pulled Zhang Huaiye's sleeve and said, Xiao Huaiye, please go in with me. I don't want to stay here. After that, the two of them retreated into the company lobby under the gaze of everyone. Brother Su, this person is trying to stir up trouble between you and your sister-in-law. When Xiong Yingjun saw Mu Shui leaving, he whispered a reminder to Su Li. He has been in the business world for more than 10 years. What kind of people has he not seen? Of course, Yi Xingchen's little trick could be seen through at a glance. The same thing happened to Su Li. He nodded slightly and said, I guess this is a setup. Ask these hooligans and let them tell you who is behind it. Facing ridicule and abuse, Su Li remained calm. If it were the old him, he would definitely be furious and helpless. But now it's different. He will only take practical actions to make those who want to touch his wife and daughter pay a heavy price. At this time, the yellow-haired guy came over, looked at Su Li with contempt, and said, Your name is Su Li. That's right. Su Li nodded and asked, Are you from Eagle Financial Management? That's no nonsense. The little yellow-haired guy winked at the other hooligans, and the six of them immediately surrounded Su Li and Xiong Ying-jun. The yellow-haired boy said arrogantly, "Since you are here, pay the bill for me. Otherwise, I will let your wife work in the company's partner unit to pay off the debt. With her looks, she should be able to make a lot of money." Cooperating unit. Su Li was puzzled. Xiong Ying-jun explained, "It's a nightclub, KTV or something like that." Oh my god. Xiong Ying-jun really has this method. Su Li felt a little scared. If you can't pay the money, Mu Shue's fate is really unimaginable. Xiong Ying-jun saw Su Li's face turn pale, and hurriedly said, "Brother Su, I won't use these methods on you, after all, we are classmates." Su Li nodded. Xiong Ying-jun was relieved when he saw that Su Li didn't say anything more. He asked the little yellow-haired boy coldly, "Boy, don't you know me?" The little yellow-haired boy glared at Xiong Ying-jun fiercely and said, "Who do you think you are? Why should Grandpa know you?" "Oh, it's my fault. There was something wrong with my management." Xiong Ying-jun sighed and handed a business card to the little yellow-haired boy. The yellow-haired boy took the business card with one hand, put it in front of his eyes and glanced at it. He was immediately stunned as if his acupoints were pressed. Eagle Financial Management, Chairman and CEO, Xiong Ying-jun. The information on the business card was like a bolt of thunder, exploding in Huang Mao's mind. Not good. You are showing off to your big brother's face. The little yellow-haired boy's face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, beads of sweat the size of beans appeared on his forehead, and his legs began to tremble like sieves. In Eagle Financial Management, he is just a part-time employee. If he didn't know Xiong Ying-jun, there wouldn't be any big problem. He couldn't meet such a big shot whenever he wanted. But he just called himself Grandpa in front of the big guy. Xiong Ying-jun is also half a gangster. People in the martial arts world take pleasure in settling scores, and if they disagree, blood will splatter 5 steps away. My carelessness this time was fatal. The little yellow-haired boy wanted to beg for mercy, but he was too nervous and couldn't utter a word for a long time. He was so anxious that he actually knelt down in front of Xiong Ying-jun. Seeing this scene, everyone in the audience widened their eyes. What's going on? The little gangster who was so arrogant just now actually knelt down to the people brought by Su Li? Yixingchen and Xiao Yu looked at each other, and both saw panic in each other's eyes. The hooligans nearby were also panicked when they saw this and asked, "Brother Huang Mao, what are you doing?" Don't ask. Kneel down for Jun brother." The yellow-haired man knocked his head to the ground and shouted with his tongue curled. "Jun Ji, it's Jun Ji." The quick-witted thugs already understood. The burly man in front of you is the boss of Eagle Financial Management. All the gangsters have heard of Xiong Ying-jun's name. According to the rumors in Hangzhou, this black bear is no good. You don't even have to show up to get rid of a small fry like me. Just as the hooligans were kneeling one after another, Xiong Ying-jun raised his hand and said in a persuasive manner, "You just joined the company, it's normal that you don't know me, but outside, don't do those underworld tricks, get up." After that, he leaned down again and asked Huang Mao, "I only have one question for you. Who asked you to come here to collect the debt? Tell me the truth. Otherwise, I will feed you to the dogs." Hearing this, the little yellow-haired boy was so scared that his whole body started shaking. Xiong Ying-jun, as I asked you to feed the dog needs to be translated. The correct understanding should be feed you to the dogs. And at this moment, Yixingchen and Xiao Yu couldn't control themselves anymore. They found that things were out of control and heading towards the worst direction. Xiao Yu stepped back silently, trying to leave the scene under the cover of the crowd. But at this moment, the little yellow-haired man kneeling on the ground suddenly turned around, pointed at Xiao Yu and shouted, "It's her. She asked me to come here to collect the debt. I thought we were all working for the company, so it doesn't matter who is collecting the debt, so I agreed. Jun Ji, please spare my life." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. As an employee of the Teaching and Training Center, Xiao Yu actually ordered gangsters to come to the company and cause trouble. What is her purpose? Don't you want the company to continue? Or do you want Mu Shue to be unable to stay in the company? Xiao Yu's face turned as pale as a sheet in an instant, and she regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. If the truth comes out, I will definitely be fired from the company. You may even be held legally responsible by the company. And this isn't even worse. She also offended Xiong Ying-jun, a gangster. The consequence of this could be very serious. In desperation, she looked at Yi Xingchen for help, but Yi Xingchen pretended to be angry and asked, Xiao Yu, explain to me. What's going on? Hearing Yi Xingchen's words, Xiao Yu was shocked at first, and then her eyes turned cold. Immediately, she took out a recorder from her coat pocket and said to Yi Xingchen, Director Yi, future Vice President Yi, do you really want me to explain the truth? After seeing the recorder, Yi Xingchen was struck by lightning. If this recording were to be played, he would definitely be ruined. Don't even mention pursuing Mu Shui then. His career will be completely over. Xiao Yu, if you have any questions, let's go to the office and talk. I will give you all the help you need. Yi Xingchen quickly spoke up, signaling Xiao Yu with his eyes not to be impulsive. At most he could give her some hush money. However, Su Li said, Xiao Yu, right? If you tell me the truth, I will guarantee your safety. Xiao Yu was waiting for Su Li to say this. Things have come to this point. She doesn't care whether she is fired or not prosecuted. She just needs to be safe now. Xiao Yu smiled cruelly at Yi Xingchen and pressed the play button of the recorder. Chapter 016, Send them to jail. If you want Mu Shui to go with you, it's very simple. As a dialogue flowed out from the recorder, everyone present fell silent. The eyes of colleagues were all focused on Yi Xingchen. Their expressions varied, some were contemptuous, some were angry, some were disappointed. A company director actually colluded with social people to harass others just to get his hands on a married woman. Is this the so-called highly educated, high-net-worth group? This is simply a beast in human clothing. At this moment, Yi Xingchen was also being tortured like he was being Lin Kai. This reversal is really incredible. Su Li is a gambler who owes millions of dollars to a bunch of rubbish. How come he has such a good relationship with the boss of Eagle Financial Management? Could it be that? Is this a trap that Su Li and Xiao Yu set for themselves? He shouted like crazy, Xiao Yu wants to harm me. He colluded with people outside to harm me. Then, he shouted at Su Li, Su Li. This is all your fault. This is all your fault. Su Li responded to him with a cold look. Yi Xingchen was hurt by Su Li's eyes. He staggered back 2 steps, his face as pale as death. There's no point in saying all this. He is the mastermind in this matter. To put it simply, it is using improper means to frame colleagues and affect the normal operation of the company. To put it in a broader sense, it is the organization of gang crimes, which use intimidation, threats, and slander to seek benefits for themselves and disrupt social order. In short, his future life is almost ruined. What does it mean to be promoted to vice president? What is the pursuit of goddess? I am lucky to be able to avoid jail. Thinking of this, Yi Xingchen collapsed. I have worked hard for so many years and finally reached the peak of my life, but ended up like this before dawn. For a moment, annoyance, anger, and shame surged into my heart. Something in Yi Xingchen's head broke. Xiao Yu, I'll kill you. Yi Xingchen pounced on Xiao Yu like crazy, and his colleagues avoided him when they saw him. Xiong Yingjun took a step forward and kicked Yi Xingchen in the waist. Xiong Yingjun was also a man who had emerged from the gang fights. This kick not only broke Yi Xingchen's kidneys, but at least gave him a cramp. Before Yi Xingchen could get up, Xiong Yingjun stepped on his chest again and said viciously, My brother Su said that we must ensure the safety of the tainted witness. Then, he said to Su Li, Brother Su, how should we deal with this guy? Should we go with the white side or the black side? Su Li said calmly, Send Yi Xingchen and Xiao Yu to prison, and take special care of the man. Xiong Yingjun didn't say anything more. He took out his phone and sent 2 voice messages to each person. The first one was, Captain Zhang, there is a case here and we need you to uphold justice. The second one was, Lawyer Luo, I want to send 2 people in. After sending these 2 voice messages, Xiong Yingjun said to Yi Xingchen, That's it for now. When you go to prison, I'll show you some talents. After hearing this, Yi Xingchen's face turned pale, as if he had been sentenced to death. He staggered to his feet, knelt down and said to Su Li, Brother Su, please spare my life. It was all the idea of that bitch Xiao Yu. Don't blame me. Su Li smiled faintly, if a person commits a crime, he must accept the punishment of the law. What right do I have to let you go? After saying this, he no longer paid any attention to the couple and walked straight into the hall of the training center. There were also quite a few colleagues standing in the hall, watching the show through the floor-to-ceiling windows. However, there was no sign of Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye. Just as Su Li was about to enter the office area to look for them, a petite receptionist stopped him. "Sir, that is the office area. You cannot go in," the girl at the front desk said timidly. After a moment of silence, Su Li nodded. There have been enough troubles today, and he doesn't want to put more pressure on Mu Shui. He took out an agreement from his pocket, handed it to the girl at the front desk, and said, "Please pass this to Mu Shui for me, thank you." In the office area, Mu Shui was packing up her things, preparing to resign to Yixingchen after he returned. Zhang Huaye advised from the side, "Mu Shui, calm down. What happened today is not your fault at all, why do you want to resign? After today's incident, do you think I can still stay in the company? Even if my colleagues don't blame me, the head office won't let me go," Mu Shui said as she wiped the desk over and over again. Zhang Huaye said angrily, "Su Li really hurt you? It's so hard to find a job nowadays." "It's not Su Li's fault." Mu Shui shook her head, pointed to Yixingchen's office, and said in a low voice, "I always feel that this group of people today were called by the surname Yi." "What?" Zhang Huaye's eyes widened, "Why do you say that?" "There's no evidence, it's just a feeling." Mu Shui shrugged, "I'll talk to you when I get home." Just then, the girl at the front desk came running over. Seeing Mu Shui packing her things, she was slightly startled and asked, "Sister Mu, are you going to resign?" Mu Shui smiled and said, "Yeah, I've lost all my face. I'll talk to Director Yi about this when he comes back." The girl at the front desk shook her head, "Director Yi will not be back, he and Xiao Yu have been taken away by the police." "What's going on?" Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye were both shocked. "I can't explain the specific situation." The girl at the front desk handed Mu Shui an agreement and said, "Sister Mu, this is given to you by your husband. Divorce agreement." Mu Shui looked at the agreement and her body trembled involuntarily. Before filing for divorce with Su Li, the two had already signed an agreement. Both parties signed and confirmed Zhuo's custody and the division of family debts. Su Li is now bringing up another agreement. Is he trying to go back on his word? He wouldn't want to compete with me for Zhuo, would he? Thinking of this, Mu Shui's legs felt weak and she sat down on the chair. Zhang Huaye, who was standing by, also noticed this. She snatched the agreement away and said, "Su Li, that bastard. What is he doing again?" After saying that, she wanted to tear up the agreement. But before taking action, she still glanced at the agreement. After reading the title of the agreement, she was stunned on the spot. "Is this a debt discharge agreement?" Zhang Huaye's eyes widened as she read the entire agreement, and then she said to Mu Shui, "Su Li's loan contract with Xionying Financial Management has been terminated. He doesn't have to pay back the more than 700,000 yuan." Mu Shui suddenly looked up, stood up and looked at the agreement in Zhang Huaye's hand. After confirming the content, I was so surprised that I was speechless. Although the agreement is a photocopy, the official seal and signature are still there, indicating that it was indeed issued by Eagle Financial Management. What's going on? More than 700,000. Just don't pay it back if you say you want to pay it back. The two of them looked through it again and found a note tucked inside the agreement. Zhang Huaye took a quick glance and quickly handed it to Mu Shui. Mu Shui picked up the note and her eyes suddenly turned red. The note read, "Mu Shui, within 30 days, I will pay off all debts and buy back our house and our car. At that time, you can take Zhuo home. We will start our lives anew. I will take you to Tibet for pilgrimage, to Lijiang to watch the sunset, and to the Aegean Sea to listen to the tide. I will fulfill all the things I promised you, and I will never break my promise." Tears wet the note and Mu Shui slumped in the chair. She had heard such sweet words countless times. Logically, she shouldn't have caught a cold at all. But her breathing still quickened, as if she had received a love confession letter. Seeing this, Zhang Huaye at the side could only shake her head helplessly. What a smart woman. Why does her IQ drop in front of Su Li? Chapter 017, Big Taboo in Jianghu. Zhao. This guy even dared to set his sights on my sister-in-law. He must be tired of living in a club. Su Li, Xiong Yingjun and Huizi were soaking in a health-preserving soup. After hearing what happened in the afternoon, Huizi was so angry that he forgot the cigar in his hand and punched the hot spring pool. A 3,000 yuan cigar is just wasted, Xiong Yingjun said with concern. He personally maintained this cigar. The storage environment and storage temperature are carefully set and adjusted. The cigar wrapper is kept shiny and bright. If it were sold in the market, it would cost more than 3,000 yuan. The key is that imported cigars are hard to buy. Gray said disapprovingly, look at you, you're such a shrew. If you want imported cigars in the future, just come to me and get them. After that, he asked Su Li again, Brother Su, is this how you deal with that guy named Yi? Just letting him go to the cell is too lenient. At least he should be sterilized, right? Su Li smiled and said nothing. He really didn't want to let Yi Xingchen and Xiao Yu go easily. What he can't tolerate the most is attacking his own family. But there are some things he doesn't want to say openly. Fortunately, Xiong Yingjun is very experienced in this area. He took over Hui Zai's words and said, don't worry about this. I have already dealt with the couple. I haven't figured out what to do with the woman yet, but it's definitely not going to be good. As for the man, Xiong Yingjun took a puff of his cigar and said, when we get to the trading floor, I'll give him a dish called stir-fried cucumber with chrysanthemum. Xiong Yingjun's words made everyone laugh. Su Li smiled happily on the surface, but she was very scared in her heart. On their way back from Mu Shui's company, he kept thinking. If I still owe Xiong Yingjun 700,000. If I don't have the ability to predict the future. So what will be the result today? Will Mu Shui fall into Yi Xingchen's trap because she can't stand the pressure? At that time, what can I do? Thinking of this, Su Li couldn't help but feel a little anxious and started thinking about things other than making money. If you want to gain a firm foothold in this world, you still have to build some social relationships. Otherwise, if I meet a despicable person like Yi Xingchen again, I will have no way to deal with him. At this time, Wheezy laughed and said, just based on Brother Xiong's dish, I have to show some talent. After saying that, he took out a small box from his bag. In the small box, there were 8 brown cigars, exuding a mellow aroma. When Xiong Yingjun saw these 8 cigars, his eyes immediately lit up. Gray, it's great. The quality of this cigar is much better than mine. Gray raised his chin and said, Yinba Besic, made by a Cuban master. You can only buy cigars of this quality from me in China. Xiong Yingjun's eyes widened, are you also selling cigars on behalf of others? This business is illegal. How can I break the law? I have a business license and I am qualified. Hui Zai said proudly. Su Li was a little surprised to hear this. The qualification to sell imported cigars is not something that ordinary people can obtain. Hui Zai, a middleman, was able to get this thing, which is enough to prove that the power behind him is not small. It can even be described as having great supernatural powers. Indeed, when it comes to connections, Hui Zai is much better than Xiong Yingjun. From engineering construction to action figures and toys. This guy will resell anything that can make money from the price difference. The network of relationships is so intricate and complex that it covers all areas. If I could make this person believe in me like Xiong Yingjun does, it would definitely be a great help to my future development. Thinking of this, Su Li couldn't help but look at Hui Zai and started deducing. In an instant, a large amount of information flooded into my mind. Hui Zai's future, like a fast-moving movie, unfolded before Su Li's eyes. After the deduction was over, Su Li broke out in a cold sweat. Jail. Gray's future is to go to jail. And he has never been released since he was imprisoned. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for selling fake cigars. The 2 people standing by, noticing that Su Li was not in good condition, looked at her with concern. Brother Su, are you okay? Did you faint from the soaking? Xiong Yingjun asked. Su Li waved her hand to indicate that she was fine. After calming herself down, she looked at Hui Zai and said, Hui Zai, are you sure that all your cigars are from Cuba? Hui Zai was stunned for a moment, then nodded, sure. It's imported directly from Cuba, and the cargo ship stops at the East China seaport, so it only needs to go through customs once. Su Li shook her head and said, recently, a batch of imitation cigars have been produced in Southeast Asia. The taste and quality are almost the same as the real ones. They will ship the cigars to Cuba, dock at the port and label them, and then bring them to China. After hearing this, Xiong Yingjun and Huizi looked at each other, not knowing what Su Li wanted to express. Seeing this, Su Li didn't want to beat around the bush. After organizing his words a little, he said, Gray, I advise you to test your batch of goods. If it is the counterfeit product I mentioned, it will be a big problem. Don't worry, Brother Su, it won't happen. Hui Zai waved his hand and said nonchalantly, this is my first batch of goods. I sent my most trusted brother to keep an eye on it. he came back from Cuba with this batch of goods. You can't replace the prince with a cat. Sully shook his head, stared into Hui's eyes and said, "What if your brother betrayed you?" "What did you say?" Gray's pupils trembled violently. He felt that Sully's eyes were like two cold pools, which made him shudder. "Brother Su, don't say that," Xiong Jun said quickly. "For those who are half businessmen and half underworld people, there are only two things that cannot be offended. One is a woman, the other is a brother. It won't end well if Sully says this." However, Sully didn't care about it. What he said is what is happening. In the future he saw that Gray was betrayed by his brother and bought a batch of imitation cigars without knowing it. After selling them for a whole year, they were exposed as fakes. Even a small amount of banned ingredients were detected in this batch of fake cigars. As the amount involved in the case was extremely huge and contained prohibited elements, Huizai was directly sentenced to the maximum penalty and had to stay in jail for the rest of his life. Xiong Jun, who later invested in the cigar business, was also implicated and sentenced to 6 years and 8 months. His life was almost ruined. These two brothers. They both failed in this matter. I can only say that things are unpredictable. At this time, Huizai was already trembling all over. Although he didn't quite believe Sully's one-sided statement. "But I just have a bad feeling in my heart. He can't do the cigar business alone. There are more than 20 big and small bosses involved. If there really is a problem, how should I explain it to them?" "Wrong. Don't think like that. If the cigars are fake, it's just a matter of losing money. But if fake cigars are sold, there will be no recovery. By then, it won't just be me who has to go in. Your family will also be implicated." Thinking of this, Wheezy hurriedly took out his phone and said in a deep voice, "A Bing. Pick a little of each type of cigar we imported this time and find someone to test it. I want the results tonight." At this point, he remembered something and said into the phone, "Also, keep a close eye on Arla tonight. If he makes any suspicious moves, tell me immediately." After hanging up the phone, Wheezy curled up in the warm hot spring pool. At this moment, he just felt cold all over. Xiong Jun also remained silent, his forehead covered with sweat. He knew the seriousness of the matter. If Sully's words came true, it would definitely save Wheezy's life. But if it doesn't come true, that would be very embarrassing. It is a big taboo in the underworld to disrupt other people's brotherhood. Even if it is done with good intentions, the impact can be very bad. At the very least, the friendship he had just established with Wheezy was bound to fail. Chapter 018, Me Too. Half an hour later, Wheezy's cell phone rang. Wheezy hesitated for a second before answering the phone. A Bing, the test results came out so quickly. The results haven't come out yet, but brother Hui, Allah. When he heard the other party mention Arla, Wheezy's face immediately turned pale, and he asked in a trembling voice, "What happened to Arla?" "When we were sending the cigars for inspection, someone leaked the news. Arla found out about it and immediately prepared to run away. When we tried to stop him, a conflict broke out and several of our brothers were injured. Brother Hui, what should we do now?" Hearing this, Wheezy's eyes dimmed instantly. After being stunned for a long time, he said weakly, "Send the cigars for inspection as usual. You guys control Arla first." It would be best if he could explain himself. After hanging up the phone, Wheezy's hands dropped limply, and the phone in his hand fell into the warm hot spring pool. At this time, Xiong Jun's pupils were dizzy. He is not a fool, so he naturally knows what happened. Although the test results of the cigars have not yet come out. But Aile's action of running away has indirectly proved that there is indeed a problem with this batch of cigars. Just like Sully said, Wheezy was betrayed by his best brother. Xiong Jun stared at Sully blankly, and suddenly an inexplicable fear arose in his heart. At this moment, he really wanted to ask Sully how he knew all this. But because Wheezy was still immersed in the sadness of being betrayed by his brother, he did not say anything. After a long silence, the dazed Wheezy finally came to his senses. He had digested the sadness and anger in his heart, and only felt grateful for surviving the disaster. If I sell these cigars without knowing it, it will be a time bomb. According to domestic laws, anyone who sells counterfeit tobacco worth more than 2 million yuan will be sentenced to 15 years in prison or life imprisonment. In order to make a good start, I specially imported a batch of high-end cigars. As long as 10% is sold, the revenue will reach more than 10 million. With such a huge amount of money involved, wouldn't the definite sentence be life imprisonment? Most importantly, this business involves a lot of people. Even if I go to jail, those bosses, big and small, will not let me go easily. By then, I'm afraid I'll die in prison for no apparent reason. Thinking of this, Wheezy could no longer control his emotions. He suddenly half knelt in the hot spring pool, clasped his fists towards Su Li and said, "Brother Su, you just saved my life. Please accept Chen Minghui's greeting." Su Li raised her hand and said, "Not really. I just provided a little information. If you are a stubborn person, I can't help you." There is another meaning to Su Li's words. If Wheezy doesn't take his words seriously, it won't be as simple as losing a brother and some money. Wheezy has been in the underworld for many years, so he can naturally understand it. He said with lingering fear, "In fact, someone told me about Arla's problem before, but I never paid attention to it. If Suji hadn't reminded me today, I really wouldn't have thought that he would kill me." Then, he looked at Su Li again and said seriously, "Brother Su, can I ask you something?" Su Li smiled and said, "Are you wondering how I know this?" Wheezy and Xiong Ying-jun looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Su Li lied calmly, "I've said before that a batch of counterfeit cigars have arrived in China, and the quantity is not small. The one who can swallow this batch of goods must be a large organization with business rights. Wheezy just said that he got the business license and imported a batch of cigars from Cuba. Shouldn't we be alert to such a coincidence?" Xiong Ying-jun asked, "But how do you know the origin of these cigars?" Su Li looked at Xiong Ying-jun meaningfully and said, "Just think of it as something I calculated. Fortune-telling is a good excuse to explain one's ability to predict the future. However, this sounds too low level. Moreover, Xiong Ying-jun and Wheezy are not people who can be easily fooled. If you want to control them, you have to be half true and half false and maintain a certain sense of mystery. Most. It is to make them feel awe, so that it can last long." Xiong Ying-jun felt frightened when he saw Su Li's look. If we say that predicting the collapse of Nasdaq and the surge in the price of Shenzhen sports shoes were just the work of mortals, being able to calculate that the cigar is a counterfeit can be said to be a divine operation. A cargo ship loaded with counterfeit cigars set out from the southeast, traveled across the ocean, and then was replaced with a fake one. Finally, it was shipped back to the country in the name of authentic cigars. Is this kind of information available to ordinary people? Even if it's fortune-telling, it's impossible to predict so many details, right? All I can say is, there must be someone stronger behind Su Li. How else can this be explained? You can't say that he has opened his third eye, right? Just as he was thinking about this, Wheezy said, "Blind Bear, stop asking so many questions. Brother Su helped you once, and now he has saved my life. From now on, we just need to follow him wholeheartedly, and that's it. Don't worry about so many things. Gray, you're a scheming bitch." Xiong Ying-jun pushed Wheezy and shouted, "It was obviously me who knew Brother Su first. How come you were the first to express your determination? Do you have the concept of first come first served?" Su Li got goosebumps all over her body. This doesn't sound right. Wheezy also rolled his eyes. "Do you think we're competing for a boyfriend? And what about first come first served?" After that, he clasped his fists towards Su Li and said, "Brother Su, leaving aside the grace of saving my life, your ability really shocked me. I have been wandering in the business world for so long, and I have never been so impressed by a person." At this point, he paused and said with a serious face, "As the saying goes, when choosing a good tree, you should look for a good tree. If you don't mind that I, Chen Minghui, came from a humble background, I would like to worship you as my elder brother. From now on, I will serve you at your service and obey your orders without any second thoughts." Wheezy's words left Su Li stunned. Xiong Ying-jun, who was standing by, was even more shocked. As someone who has been working in society since his teens, why can't I say such nice words? In his anxiety, he could only imitate Wheezy's fist clasping and shouted, "Brother Su, I do the same. It's over, it's over." Su Li had never been flattered like this since she was a child. He waved his hands awkwardly and said, "It's not that I have to serve you. It's fate that we know each other. Let's cooperate more in the future and show our strengths." Wheezy nodded heavily. "Brother Su's vision and magnanimity really impress me. I, Chen Minghui, am so lucky to have met you." "Me too." Xiong Ying-jun took over again. "You are the same as me." Wheezy pushed Xiong Ying-jun in annoyance and cursed, "With you here, I can't even create the atmosphere. I just want to ruin your atmosphere. Otherwise, what if Brother Su only pampers you and doesn't take me to play? Xiong Yingjun laughed. That's enough, you two, you're being so weird. Su Li smiled bitterly. However, it is embarrassing. He had completed the first step in building his network of contacts. Xiong Yingjun is sharp, decisive and resolute. Chen Minghui is versatile and has a wide range of interests. These two people each have their own resources. With their assistance, there will be more things I can do next. Thinking of this, Su Li immediately said to Xiong Yingjun, the future's business needs to be handled as soon as possible. For unexplained reasons, crude oil and natural gas prices will soon skyrocket. With a tenfold leverage, Su Li's principal of 2.5 million will increase sixfold in just a few days. Add to that Xiong Yingjun's 40% dividend, this wave can earn 24.5 million. Of course, more importantly, this must be done on time. It will be difficult to achieve maximum profit if you enter the market one day later. Don't worry, Brother Su. Everything has been done. I have also found for specialists to keep an eye on it. They will sort out the relevant information for me every day, and I will report to you at the same time. Xiong Yingjun answered seriously, as if he was a manager reporting to his boss. No need to be so formal in your report. It seems awkward. Su Li nodded, feeling very satisfied. Xiong Yingjun was with her most of the day, but he still found time to complete their 8.5 million investment. With such execution ability, it was no wonder that he was able to expand the lending company and establish a financial company. Hearing the conversation between the two, Wheezy said with great sorrow, "Hey. I have lost all my money in this cigar business. Otherwise, I would have played with you guys anyway." Xiong Yingjun smiled and said, "Don't you only do physical business and not finance?" "That's because I didn't know Brother Su before," Wheezy said cleverly. Su Li patted Wheezy's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, I will help you recover soon, but before that, you have to do me a small favor." Chapter 019, Tell me, how much money do you want this time? Don't even mention asking for help. If Brother Su has any instructions, just tell him. When Wheezy heard that Su Li could help him recover, he immediately became active. Su Li organized her words a bit and said, "The house I lived in before was sold by the bank, and I want to buy it back now. I went to see it a few days ago, and the house is now in the hands of an agent. He plans to renovate it this year and move in himself. I heard that you know a lot of agents, can you help me make some arrangements? Even if it's just a little more money, it's fine." Wheezy nodded and said, "People who dare to buy foreclosed houses are more or less capable, and they all have their own circles. I've also played with foreclosed houses before, I'll go ask around, I should be able to find someone who can make the call." Su Li nodded, "Thank you then." Xiong Yingjun asked, "Brother Su, let me ask you something. With your ability, it will not be a problem for you to buy a luxury house or a villa in the future. Why do you want to spend more money to buy the house you have before?" Su Li smiled and said, "Mu Shui and I bought this house together. We decorated it together, bought appliances together, and selected decorations together. It carries a lot of memories and means a lot to me. TSK TSK TSK." After hearing this, Wheezy was shocked and said, "I really want to meet my sister-in-law." Xiong Yingjun joked, "Gray. Why are you meeting my sister-in-law? Do you want to commit a crime?" "Bullshit." Wheezy glared at Xiong Yingjun, "I'm just curious, how good is my sister-in-law to make Brother Su miss her so much?" Xiong Yingjun narrowed his eyes and said, "It's hard to say how outstanding she is. I only know that in the past 30 years, I have never seen a woman more beautiful, better, kinder, and more virtuous than my sister-in-law." Hearing this, Wheezy was shocked. You know, Xiong Yingjun is also a playboy who has been hanging around with women all year round. The reason why he could say this was either because he had learned the skill of flattery, or he was really amazed by this woman. "Blind bear, I've praised you too much, hold back a little." Su Li hurried to stop him. Although he agreed with what Xiong Yingjun said. "But I haven't gotten Mu Shui back yet. The more I realize how good my wife is, the more regretful and anxious I feel. What if I end up losing? Isn't it true that the higher you are praised, the harder you will fall?" Fortunately, Su Li also has a detailed plan to get Mu Shui back. Every step he takes now is closely linked to each other. Buying back the old house is an extremely important step. Mu Shui is not a woman who values material things. The reason for divorcing Su Li was not because he owed debts. But it was that drunken slap in the face that shattered all her expectations. If he spends money to make up for it now, what's the difference between that and the rich second generation who pursued her before? Therefore, Su Li wants to go back to her life. Back to when they were just married. At that time, neither he nor Mu Shui had high incomes. But he has his own house, car and children. The family lives happily and positively. Only by recreating this simple happiness will Mu Shui understand. The Su Li before starting her own business is really back. Early the next morning, Su Li borrowed a car from Xiong Yingjun and drove to his hometown. After all, it is not convenient to take public transportation with 300,000 yuan in cash. Su Li's hometown is Lihu Town. This is a small town with very Jiangnan characteristics. The scenery is beautiful and the air is fresh. When construction was booming in the past few years, many real estate developers invested in cultural and tourism projects here, but 99.9999% of them failed. The reason is simple. The real estate developers are simply acquiring land cheaply under the guise of developing cultural tourism. In the end, all the money was used for building buildings and real estate speculation. The development of the cultural and tourism industry was perfunctory if possible, and there was almost no follow-up operation. Over the years, there are a large number of vacant houses in Lihu Town. Even last year, it was rated as one of the top 10 ghost towns in the country. It is very difficult to give away the houses here even if you want to give them away now. However, Su Li knew. In the near future, Lihu Town will become an internet-famous town like Lijiang. As long as Su Li prepares the money and connections, and then takes action at the right time, she can easily reap this wave of dividends. Whether you make tens of billions or hundreds of billions, it depends on whether you are well prepared. Driving while thinking about the future. Su Li quickly entered Lihu Town from the national highway. Most of the people on the streets are elderly and children, and young people are basically nowhere to be seen. After turning a few familiar intersections, Su Li drove the car into a residential area. After practicing his filial son smile in the car, he went upstairs carrying 300,000 yuan in cash, 2 bottles of Feiqian Maotai, and for soft cigarettes. Boom boom boom. After a short wait, Su Xiangyang, Su's father, opened the door. "Dad, I'm back, he. As soon as Su Li saw his father's cold and serious face, he shuddered. He is not a born bastard. He was very obedient at home when he was a child. His temperament changed drastically only after he started his own business. When I saw my father at this moment, the awe that was engraved in my DNA arose spontaneously. The smile that I had just practiced in the car was completely forgotten, and I could only force out a smile that was uglier than crying." Su Xiangyang glared at Su Li without saying anything. He just got a pair of slippers for Su Li and walked back to the living room. Su Li followed behind like a quail and placed the bag full of cigarettes and alcohol and the travel bag on the coffee table. At this time, Su Xiangyang noticed the translucent bag containing cigarettes and alcohol. When he saw the faintly visible red packaging, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "Dad, where's Mom?" Su Li looked into the kitchen and asked. "She is working part-time for someone else. She originally wanted to take a leave to come back and cook you a meal, but I think you, a rebellious son, don't deserve this kind of treatment." Su Xiangyang took out 2 plates of marinated food from the refrigerator and said, "Let's just make do with it today. You didn't come to see us sincerely anyway. Tell me, how much money do you want this time?" "Dad, you." Su Li smiled bitterly, not knowing how to refute. "Dad is right. Since I started my business, I have rarely been home. Even if I go home, it's to ask for money, and I'll threaten to die if you don't give it to me. How pitiful are the parents in the world. Fear of doing something stupid. The parents even took out their younger brother's down payment, their younger sister's tuition, and their coffin money. Their whole family has given everything for me. And what about yourself?" Not only did he give up on himself and indulge in alcohol and gambling, he also beat his wife. How can one not feel chilled by such scum? Thinking of this, Su Li's eyes turned red. She stood beside the coffee table, speechless for a long time. Su Xiangyang felt something was wrong when he saw this, and immediately asked in a panic, "What's wrong with you? Did you encounter any difficulties? What kind of man is it to shed tears? If you have something wrong, just say it. Let's find a solution together." Su Li sniffed and choked up and said, "Dad, I'm fine. I'm not here to ask for money today, I'm here to pay it back. Pay back the money. Su Xiangyang was stunned, his face full of disbelief. Just as he was about to say something, Su Li had already opened the travel bag, revealing stacks of red banknotes. The moment he saw the banknotes, Su Xiangyang trembled all over. Then, those bright eyes began to become cloudy, a look of despair overflowed from them, and sadness filled the old face. At this moment, Su Xiangyang had only one thought in his mind: my son has finally come to this point. Chapter 020, Son, let us go and turn ourselves in. Su Xiangyang had never seen so much cash in his life. Occasionally, we see it on TV, also at the hands of various villains. Villain. That's right. My son must have gone astray. Otherwise, why bring cash with you? Why do you have tears in your eyes and are hesitant to speak? It's obvious that he came to say goodbye to his family before running away. Thinking of this, Su Xiangyang's eyes also turned red. He was silent for a moment, then said to Su Li, Son, let's go and turn ourselves in. Har. Su Li was stunned. Dad, what did you say? I said, let's go and turn ourselves in. Su Xiangyang repeated. Su Li burst into laughter and said hurriedly, Dad, I'm not. You don't have to say it. Su Xiangyang took a deep look at Su Li and said, Leah, Dad knows that you have suffered a lot outside these years. It's also because Dad is useless and can't give you any support. Speaking of this, Su Xiangyang choked up a little. Seeing this, Su Li hurriedly sat next to Su Xiangyang and comforted him. Dad, what are you talking about? Whether I suffer or not has nothing to do with you. It's not easy for you to raise me. Su Xiangyang's shoulders trembled, and he choked up. You also know that it was not easy for us to raise you. I never asked you to become a dragon, but I also don't want you to become a worm. Tell Dad the truth, where did all this money come from? Of course I earned it. Su Li said. Why don't you tell the truth? Do you think Dad is old and confused? Su Xiangyang said excitedly, last week, you asked your family for money. Now you take out so much cash. Look at this huge pile, it must be hundreds of thousands, right? Where can you make so much money in such a short time? Su Li didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, I made money from investing. I've made millions in the past few days. If you don't believe me, look at the receipts. I don't trust you. Su Xiangyang stood up suddenly and shouted, you don't even have the capital. How can you make millions? And you made it in a few days. I've only seen this kind of business in criminal law. Hearing this, Su Li almost laughed out loud. Dad, are you still studying criminal law? You rebellious son, you still have the nerve to laugh. Su Xiangyang was both desperate and heartbroken. My son has been smart and sensible since he was young, and he is even more diligent and filial when he grows up. This is obvious to all neighbors, including neighbors and neighbors alike. Otherwise, his old comrade in arms would not have married his daughter to him. How did he embark on the path of crime? Thinking of this, Su Xiangyang felt a little dizzy and his legs began to tremble. Seeing this, Su Li hurriedly stood up to support him, and while stroking Su Xiangyang's chest, she said, Dad, can't you just listen to me? I really didn't break any law. I made this money from selling sports shoes. I have kept the copies of the invoices. Su Xiangyang was helped by Su Li to sit on the sofa. After catching his breath for a few minutes, he calmed down and said, Don't lie to me. How can sports shoes make so much money? Come with me and turn yourself in later. Otherwise, we are no longer father and son. Seeing his father's harsh words, Su Li knew that he could not make his point, so he took out the materials he had prepared in advance from the travel bag containing money. Dad, take a look. This is the invoice for my investment transaction. It has the stamp of the tax bureau, and it is legal and compliant. And the loan I owed before has been paid off now. This is the contract termination agreement, it can't be fake. Su Xiangyang was slightly stunned, then took the materials and started looking through them. At the same time, Su Li was explaining her experiences over the past few days. From how he helped Xiong Yingjun avoid losses, to investing with him in the Shenzhen series of sports shoes, except for the fact that he did not have the ability to predict the future frankly, he had said everything that needed to be said. 10 minutes later. The doubt on Su Xiangyang's face completely disappeared, but tears were still streaming down his face. Okay. Su Xiangyang hugged Su Li and said excitedly, Son, seeing you successfully overcome the difficulties, I can die with my eyes closed. In the future, you must live a peaceful life with Mu Shui. We don't need to be rich, peace and safety is happiness. What the hell? Don't say such things. Su Li patted Su Xiangyang on the back and complained. Then, he pointed to the money, cigarettes and alcohol on the coffee table and said, there are 300,000 yuan in here. 250,000 yuan is the money I owe to my uncles, and the other 50,000 yuan is for you and mom. Okay. Okay. It's time to pay it back. Su Xiangyang nodded repeatedly. The relatives at home are not rich either. At that time, in order to raise money for Su Li, he risked his reputation. The agreed time for repayment was delayed again and again. In the past few years, he couldn't hold his head up in front of his relatives and friends. It's okay now. My son is out of misery. I can now hold my head up high and live my life as a human being. Thinking of this, Su Xiangyang smiled like a child. Seeing her father happy, Su Li was also excited. He took out a bottle of Feiqian Maotai from his bag and said, Dad, 2 cups. When Su Xiangyang saw Feiqian Maotai, his eyes widened, but he still waved his hands and said, No, no. This wine is too expensive. Can't you keep it as a gift or give it to someone else? I'll just drink some Nilanshan. Su Li didn't say anything more and asked directly, This is a 30-year-old wine. Are you sure you want to drink Nilanshan? 30 years old. Feiqian Maotai. Su Xiangyang swallowed, his eyes a little dazed. As a wine lover, who doesn't he know the name of Maotai? Moreover, this is the best Maotai. But after thinking about it, Su Xiangyang waved his hand. It's too extravagant to drink this wine by myself. Bang! Before Su Xiangyang finished speaking, Su Li had already opened the bottle of wine. Su Xiangyang cursed, You rebellious son. I told you not to open it. After saying that, he snatched the bottle of Maotai, complained about the waste, and poured himself a full glass. Next, the father and son started to drink and chat with each other while eating the braised dishes. Looking at his father who was laughing so hard, Su Li was filled with emotion. In the past, I cared too much about fame and fortune. I always feel that only by making a lot of money can I be happy. Little did I know that I had already been happy. Happiness is having healthy parents, wife and children by your side, and good health. Su Li drank the wine in the glass and muttered to himself. Brother, that's a good point. Su Xiangyang, with a slightly red face, patted Su Li on the shoulder like an elder brother and said, If you can take good care of your wife and children, respect your parents, and take good care of yourself, you will be a successful man. At this point, Su Xiangyang asked again, By the way, why didn't you bring Xie Xue and Zhuor with you this time? Your mother and I missed them so much. This. Su Li shuddered violently and was half sober. I was so excited chatting with my dad that I forgot about the important things. Aren't you here this time to talk about divorce? What to do? Dad is so happy now, do you still need to say it? Sweat was pouring out of Su Li's forehead, and the hand holding the glass was shaking a little. Seeing Su Li like this, Su Xiangyang's blurry eyes began to focus again, and he asked in a deep voice, Did something happen to you too? Su Li knew that he couldn't hide it from his father. After a struggle between his conscience and his mind, he nodded heavily and confessed, Dad, I came here this time just to tell you about Mu Shui. Having said this, he paused and drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. Taking advantage of this spicy energy, he said, Mu Shui, apply for a divorce from me. Chapter 021, I don't have a father like you. Divorce. When Su Xiangyang heard the word, divorce, he was stunned. After a moment of silence, Su Xiangyang asked, What's the matter? Is it because of money? His voice was much quieter than before. It was as if all the strength in my body had been drained away. Su Li shook her head. If it was because of money, she would have divorced me long ago. What is that? Tell me. Su Xiangyang suddenly jumped up and smashed the wine glass on the table. Su Li was so frightened that she trembled and stammered, It's my fault, I hit her. Su Li lowered her head and spoke in a mosquito-like voice. You beat your wife. Su Xiangyang's face was full of disbelief. Su Li shrank her head and stretched out a finger, I slapped. I was drunk at the time. Su Xiangyang waved his hand and said, Don't say anything. Mu Shui is right. People like you don't deserve to have a wife. Then, with lifeless eyes, he straightened the overturned wine glass and poured himself another glass of wine. Dad, the cup is broken. Su Li reminded. Su Xiangyang, however, seemed not to have heard it, and drank the wine in one gulp, then said in an extremely normal tone, I know the grievances that Mu Shui has suffered over the years. Others are devoted to you and never leave you. But you order them around, pretend to be happy when you are happy, and abuse them when you are unhappy. Your Uncle Mu has mentioned this to me more than once. Your mother and I have said good things about you, but we know in our hearts that you are a piece of shit. I don't need to say more about how good Mu Shui's conditions are, right? If your Uncle Mu didn't treat you like a half-son, with our family's conditions, would he marry his precious daughter to you? I really want to interview you. Where do you get the courage and confidence to treat a woman who loves you wholeheartedly like this? Hearing this, Su Li felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. But there is no practical meaning in repenting now. Didn't he come here today just to discuss with his parents how to win Mu Shui back? As long as the family works together, there is still hope. Thinking of this, Su Li said, Dad, I'm not here to discuss with you. Dad. What do you want to do? Before Su Li could finish her words, she saw a horrifying scene. I saw. Su Xiangyang stood up woodenly, and then untied the belt around his waist. Su Li stood up suddenly. At this moment, he remembered the fear of being dominated by the 7 wolves. Su Xiangyang pulled the belt and said calmly, Where did you hit Mu Shui? Su Li stretched out her hands and shouted, Dad. I know I was wrong. Calm down. Su Xiangyang smiled bitterly, It's my fault. I didn't educate you well. I wronged my niece Xiaoxue. Divorce. Divorce is the best. Dad. Let's talk it out. Don't call me Dad. I don't have a dad like you. Su Xiangyang was so angry that he picked up the belt and hit Su Li. Su Li hurriedly dodged and crawled onto the sofa. Su Xiangyang chased after him relentlessly, swinging the belt in his hand with a whirring sound, while cursing, You bastard. I'll beat you to death. You dare to hit my niece? I'm going to skin you alive today. Bang. Bang. Su Xiangyang was really angry. He kept swinging the belt at Su Li. Su Li was jumping on the sofa like a monkey. At this moment, he felt both scared and relieved. In the previous dream, he had been separated from his wife and children and deserted by his friends and relatives. Now, I can still have my father beat me. Isn't this a kind of happiness? Just as the father and son were attacking and defending, the door was opened again. Su Li looked towards the door and saw that it was her mother Chen Yun who came back. Su Li was overjoyed, jumped to the end of the sofa, and shouted to her mother, Mom! Stop my dad! When Mother Chen Yun saw Su Li being chased and beaten with a belt, she also panicked. She dropped the vegetables she had just bought and rushed over here. Old man! Why are you beating your son? Chen Yun shouted, standing between Su Li and Su Xiangyang. Fine? Would I hit someone if I was fine? Su Xiangyang panted, pointed his belt at Su Li and yelled, Your good son beat up my wife. Now my wife wants to divorce him. Divorce? Chen Yun's body shook violently, and she looked at Su Li blankly, Leah, is this true? Su Li nodded and agreed. My mother is a teacher at Lihu Middle School and was Mu Shui's homeroom teacher. In her heart, Mu Shui is no longer just a half-daughter, but her own daughter. Now hearing that Su Li and Mu Shui were getting divorced, he instantly lost his mind. This is a sin. Chen Yun's face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, and tears welled up in her eyes. Mom, I was wrong. Seeing this, Su Li could only repeat his weak apology. But Chen Yun covered her face and cried, then ran into the kitchen. Look at what you have done. Our Su family must have been unlucky for 8 generations to have a wife-beating bastard like you. Seeing his wife's emotional breakdown, Su Xiangyang had little time to care about Su Li. He pulled up his pants and wanted to go into the kitchen to comfort her. Unexpectedly, before Su Xiangyang took 2 steps, Chen Yun rushed out from the kitchen again. In her hand, she was holding an old wooden stick mop. You little bastard. I'm going to kill you today. Without waiting for Su Xiangyang to react, Chen Yun swung the mop and hit him. It's over, the men's singles has become mixed doubles. Su Li smiled bitterly in her heart and gave up resisting. There is no way to escape this beating today. Mu Shui, you have a good pair of in-laws. Just when the Su family was in chaos, Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye returned home in high spirits. Since the fuss of debt collection at home, the company's personnel have undergone tremendous changes. Yixingchen and Xiao Yu were both detained. What awaits them will be legal sanctions. The group company also conducted a liquidation of the two people and dug up a lot of black material on illegal operations. All their small groups under their command were punished. As their victim, Mu Shui was naturally fine. But Zhang Huaye was caught in the crossfire for no apparent reason. Just because she was promoted by Yi Xingchen, she was considered to be a member of a small group and was inexplicably transferred and demoted. However, Zhang Huaye didn't care about it. Instead, I have the excuse and courage to do what I want to do. Tons. Phew. Cool. At home, Zhang Huaye gulped down a glass of beer and let out a hearty sigh. She asked Mu Shui, do you really want to work with me? Starting a business is risky. Zhang Huaye's dream when she was in college was to open a dance studio and teach people to dance. Now that we have experience in teaching and training institutions, we are no longer limited to the dance studio. She plans to open an art interest class to teach dancing, musical instruments, and vocal music. Mu Shui didn't want to work in the company in the first place. When I heard that my best friend was going to start a business, I naturally became interested. Of course, I know starting a business has risks, but working is also very risky. If I work for another 3 years, I will be 30 years old and have a child. If I lose my job again at that time, my life will be like hell. Mu Shui said with a smile and poured herself a glass of beer. After learning that Eagle Financial's debts were resolved, she felt extremely relieved. Without having to bear so much debt, she can give Duo a better life. This gave her hope of living a good life and ignited her fighting spirit. In addition, the note left by Su Li also made her feel excited. Certainly. She didn't dare to have too high expectations of Su Li. After all, the torn wound was still bleeding and hurting slightly. As for Su Li, she could only resist the urge and observe slowly. But it doesn't matter. Being able to be examined means that there is still potential. At worst, it's just another disappointment. Instead of dwelling on this, it's better to live in the present. Mu Shui has already thought about it. She wants to start a business with Zhang Huaye. With the two of them being graduates from the Shanghai Conservatory of Music and having worked in large-scale teaching and training centers, they don't have to worry about not being able to recruit students. Thinking of this, Mu Shui said to Zhang Huaye, I'm not kidding. Let me tell you, I've even thought of the enrollment plan for the first batch. Zhang Huaye's eyes lit up and she asked, what's the plan? Mu Shui said with a wicked smile, haven't you played live streaming before? I heard that many students are following you. We can use this channel to attract a group of students. When Zhang Huaye heard this, she clapped her hands and said, Mu Shui, you have been led astray by Su Li. But I like her so much. Mu Shui curled her lips, it's enough if you like me. Don't like Su Li. Zhang Huaye was stunned, that's not what I meant. Are you jealous? Mu Shui turned her head proudly and said, how could that be? I mean, he doesn't deserve your love. Chapter 022, Family Love. On the other side, at Lao Su's house. That's what I think. After being scolded by his parents, Su Li confessed everything about the divorce and then explained his plan to win back Mu Shui. His plan was simple. In 20 days, it will be the Dragon Boat Festival. Su Li wanted to take this opportunity to hold a family gathering. The party was held in the house he and Mu Shui used to live in. The family had a happy meal as they did in the past, giving Mu Shui a feeling that everything was back to normal. I know Mu Shui. She is a sentimental and emotional person. This is a good idea. After listening to Su Li's plan, Chen Yun nodded repeatedly. She could see that Su Li was really putting her heart into it. Although the old couple of the Su family are still angry, they will still help Su Li at the critical moment. It would definitely not be difficult for the two of them to invite Mu Shui to come for dinner. After things were made clear, Su Li felt a lot more relaxed. He stretched and said, anyway, just pretend you don't know about the divorce. Let's celebrate the holidays and eat. I'll leave Mu Shui to you. I'm going to go to sleep for a while. After saying that, he stood up and went into the room. Etc. Mother Chen Yun also stood up and said, Mom will give you some medicine. Only then did Su Li remember that there was a red mop mark on her face. Mu Shui is such a good girl. How could you bear to hit her? In the room, Chen Yun applied the ointment on Su Li's face. As she was wiping, she felt her heart rising with anger and the strength in her hands increased a lot. Mom, be gentle. Su Li grimaced in pain. Are you being gentle? If you weren't my son, I would crack your head open. Chen Yun cursed angrily. You know, Mu Shue's parents divorced very early. She grew up with her father Mu Yun. Mu Shue's father was depressed for a while after his divorce. During that period, Mu Shue couldn't even have a hot meal. As a brother, Su Xiangyang couldn't bear to see this, so he took Mu Shue home to live with him for a while. During this period, Chen Yun was also Mu Shue's class teacher. It not only teaches learning, but also takes care of daily life. Chen Yun almost treated Mu Shue as her own daughter. When she heard that Su Li had abused Mu Shue, she was completely stunned. On one side is his own son, and on the other side is his goddaughter of more than 10 years. No matter whose side she stands on, it will make her feel heartbroken. But one thing is certain. If I hadn't seen Su Li change, she would never help this bastard to win back Mu Shue. As she thought about it, Chen Yun applied a lot more strength on her hands. Mom. Su Li was in so much pain that she said, I was a bastard in the past. But I swear to you, I will definitely get Mu Shue back. I will definitely treat her well. Chen Yun slapped Su Li on the forehead and said, don't be so confident. Mu Shue has a strong sense of self-esteem. If you slap her, it's no less than stabbing her with a knife. If you want her to change her mind, you have to put in a lot of effort. If you can't do this, no matter how rich you are, she won't even look at you. After hearing her mother's reminder, Su Li's sense of crisis increased significantly. He also knew how deeply that slap of his had hurt Mu Shue. What made her even more disappointed was that Duer suffered from depression. This is all the sin I committed before. Su Li knew that it was not easy to get forgiveness. Abusing your wife is fun for a while, but chasing her will end in a funeral pyre. What you said is really true. It was a rare opportunity for Su Li to go home, so she stayed at home. The next morning, he was dragged by Su Xiangyang to visit several uncles' homes and delivered the money he owed to them. Su Li originally thought that she would be looked down upon. You know, my uncles and aunts all took out their coffins to support me. In order to avoid debt, I have not contacted them in the past 2 years. I guess these relatives hate me to death. But what I didn't expect was, when the uncles and aunts heard that they had paid off most of the debt, they all smiled from the bottom of their hearts and pulled Su Xiangyang to have a good drink with them no matter what. Their enthusiasm gave Su Li a new understanding of family affection. Blood relationship is a cold term in science. But in Chinese culture, there is indescribable tenderness. In addition to these relatives, the people he felt sorry for included his younger brother Su Wu and his younger sister Su Wan. My younger brother's girlfriend broke off the engagement because he couldn't afford the bride price. My sister also lived a tight life throughout college because her family was short of money. While others were enjoying their youth and strolling on the playground, she could only wash dishes in a restaurant. Whether she could get the full salary depended on the mood of the foreman. This is all my own fault. Thinking of this, Su Li felt heartbroken. Su Wu, Su Wan, I will definitely let you live a good life. Just as Su Li was sighing, Xiong Yingjun called. Brother Su, where are you? Xiong Yingjun's coquettish voice came from the phone. Su Li shuddered suddenly and cursed, big black bear. Stop being disgusting. Tell me, what's the matter? Xiong Yingjun laughed and said, brother, why are you pretending? Everyone in the world knows that something big has happened, how could you not know? The two energy-rich countries in the West have already started fighting. Crude oil and natural gas prices have been rising sharply since noon. Su Li smiled and said, it's just as I expected. Brother, you are the living Zhuge Liang. Xiong Yingjun said excitedly, it has increased by 20% now. I predict that it will increase to 50% in 2 days. TSK, this blind bear really got it right. Su Li marveled inwardly. Relying on his experience, Xiong Yingjun actually guessed the result he saw in the deduction. No wonder he, who didn't even graduate from high school, could be so successful in the financial industry. It seems like this is a talented player. But if it weren't for me, he would probably have missed this opportunity. When it comes to futures trading, one needs to have a strong foresight and a broad perspective. It's another matter entirely to wait until it starts to rise sharply before jumping in. Even though crude oil and natural gas are rising sharply now, in a few days, the bigwigs from all sides will step in and use thunder-like measures to stabilize the prices. The 50% increase in 2 days that Xiong Yingjun mentioned is the highest point this month. Certainly. It will continue to rise later, but it will be accompanied by frequent fluctuations, and a 10x leverage will definitely not be able to withstand it. Su Li planned to sell the futures in his hands at the first high point, and then use large funds to carry out detailed operations later. The time is just 2 days later. If you delay for 1 day, it will be difficult to find someone to take over. At that time, Su Li's 2.5 million will become 15 million. Xiong Junjun's 6 million will become 36 million. According to the 4:6 split agreed upon by the two. In addition to the principal, Su Li can earn a total of 24.5 million. Thinking of this, Su Li said to Xiong Yingjun, "This batch of futures must be sold before the afternoon of the day after tomorrow. Don't hesitate. Selling it the day after tomorrow." Xiong Yingjun was a little surprised. The situation is favorable to us. The advantage is only temporary. I am determined to run away. If you trust me, come with me, Su Li said firmly. Xiong Yingjun was silent for a moment, then said, "Okay. I believe you. Let's start making arrangements now." Chapter 023, Su Li's Vision, Industry will lead to national prosperity. After spending 3 days of leisure at home, Su Li returned to Hangzhou at the urging of Xiong Yingjun. Now, after several days of skyrocketing, the prices of crude oil and natural gas have begun to fall, but Xiong Yingjun has completed the closing of positions according to Su Li's instructions. When they ran away, it was the highest point. Now, there was an extra 27 million yuan in Su Li's account, and she even had a son. "Brother Su, this is the last time I'm going to call you brother. Our brotherhood has ended. From now on, you are my father." At the wine table, Chen Minghui stood up and drank their wine in one gulp. "No." Seeing this, Xiong Yingjun got anxious and cursed. "How come there are still people fighting for this father? This time it was Brother Su who helped me make money. What does it have to do with you, Wheezy? It doesn't matter now, it will happen later." Wheezy glanced at Xiong Yingjun and said, "If Brother Su can help you earn 18 million, he can help me earn 180 million. Sooner or later, you have to recognize this father. It's better to recognize him sooner rather than later, so that you can be filial to him for a few more days." At this point, he smiled at Su Li and said, "Isn't that right, Father Su? Enough, you two are just performing crosstalk." Su Li waved her hands and smiled. "I don't want a son like you who has no moral integrity." But it is understandable that Xiong Yingjun and Chen Minghui would be so flattering. Many experts have made predictions about the situation between the two major energy-rich countries. Most people thought there was no chance they could fight. After all, it involves the interests of many countries. Even if it is on the brink of war, they will most likely be persuaded to come back. But the fact is that they just started beating each other, and no one could stop them. Su Li's predictions won over the vast majority of experts and scholars. But this is not the most admirable thing. What impressed Xiong Yingjun and Chen Minghui the most was the timing Su Li chose to close his positions. It's true that as soon as we sell out here, the price starts to fall there. Even a few hours late will result in a huge loss. When the situation is good, you can break in time. Either they have incredible analytical abilities or information sources. Or he could have opened his third eye and seen the result directly. Whatever the point, it's hard not to be in awe. Compared with Chen Minghui, Xiong Yingjun, who had some understanding of Su Li, felt it was like a dream. It's only been a few days. Su Li went from being in debt of 1.2 million to having nearly 30 million in cash. This speed of making money is a myth even in the financial industry. I must hold on to Su Li's thigh tightly. Thinking of this, Xiong Yingjun picked up the wine glass again and said to Su Li, "Brother Su, I will give you half of the shares of Xiongyin Financial Management. You don't have to manage the company, just point me in the direction." Su Li clinked glasses with Xiong Yingjun and said calmly, "Thank you, but I don't want any." Forehead. When Xiong Yingjun saw Su Li's straightforward refusal, he was stunned on the spot. You know, although Eagle Financial Management is not a large financial company, it has been operating for 5 or 6 years and has many big clients worth hundreds of millions. If the economy is good, it's easy to make 20 or 30 million a year. Su Li refused without even blinking. Could it be that he doesn't think much of this little money? Or maybe he looks down on me. Just when Xiong Yingjun was stunned, Su Li said, "Blind Xiong, I wonder if you have ever heard of this saying. No matter how much money you make in the financial industry, it is just for others to keep. As long as you continue to work hard in this industry, you will pay it back sooner or later. Xiong Yingjun nodded. There is such a saying. In the financial market, victory and defeat are common. As long as the money in the account is not spent, it is not yours. Su Li said, so, I won't spend too much time on finance. The reason why I am taking you to speculate now is just a stopgap measure in the initial stage. Hearing this, Chen Minghui's eyes lit up. Speculation ruins the country, industry makes it prosperous. It seems that Brother Su is a man with great ambitions, just like me. Do you still have ambitions? Xiong Yingjun cursed, aren't you a middleman who makes a profit from the price difference speculating? Chen Minghui spread his hands and said, while I'm making a profit from the price difference, I'm also supporting a lot of factory workers. But you're just a pure capitalist lackey tilder. Xiong Yingjun gave a thumbs up, you are noble. You are amazing. Chen Minghui was too lazy to talk to Xiong Yingjun, so he asked Su Li, Brother Su, you should have your own plan for the future, right? Su Li nodded, my future direction must be based on industry, and in science and technology industries, such as new energy, computer hardware, drug development, etc. Chen Minghui was surprised and asked, are you going to be the Musk of China? I'm not as awesome as others. Su Li said modestly. But his modesty was just a show. His ability is much more amazing than Musk's. A few experts can also predict the changing trends in the world. For example, now many people agree that energy is bound to undergo changes. But they don't know when, where and by whom the change will happen. However, Su Li can find these key points accurately. As long as he acquires the talents and technologies that lead the change first, he can even become the leader of the next era. But before that, he still needs to expand his funds and network. Investing in finance is indeed a way to make money quickly. However, when Eagle Financial Management completed its initial accumulation, it left a lot of stains, and Su Li didn't want to get involved. The best way is to re-establish the company and let Xiong Yingjun invest with resources. Thinking of this, Su Li patted Xiong Yingjun on the shoulder and said, Blind Xiong, we who are doing big things can't just focus on the small piece of land under our feet. Some things must be let go when the time comes. Xiong Yingjun took a deep breath and said, my company has always been mainly engaged in lending business. To be honest, this is a business that may not last forever. I don't know when it will end. If Brother Su has a better way, I can completely give up this company. Su Li smiled and said, don't give up so quickly. I still need your assistance in the early stages. For example, I will use your resources in the financial industry. At this time, Chen Minghui interrupted and said, Brother Su, I can also assist. When will you guide me? Your chance will come soon. Have you contacted the electric blanket manufacturer mentioned before? Su Li said. Yes. We contacted them on the same day. Chen Minghui nodded, we found 6 companies, all of which are OEMs for big brands, and the quality is excellent. Su Li nodded and said, find some more, even small manufacturers are fine. I'll let you know when we're ready to make a move. Yes, sir. Chen Minghui responded repeatedly. Although he didn't know what Su Li was going to do specifically, from his calm expression, Chen Minghui actually felt the momentum of swallowing everything. The last time I felt this way was when they acquired sports shoes from their own hands. After 3 rounds of drinking, the 3 of them could no longer drink. Su Li had the worst alcohol tolerance and just lay down on the table. Xiong Yingjun went to the toilet to flush the toilet and pay the bill at the same time. Chen Minghui was lying on the chair with his eyes blurred, watching short videos. With the intelligent recommendation of big data, he will only see all kinds of beauties. I saw him wiggling his thumbs boredly as beauties, one after another, appeared and disappeared on the screen. Looking at these women who were trying their best to skirt the line, Chen Minghui felt that there was nothing new and was unwilling to even click into the live broadcast room. But just when he was about to close the app, he saw a female anchor from the same city. Her stunning appearance and quiet temperament made his eyes light up and he was stunned by her beauty. Chapter 024, The Opportunity Has Come. Chen Minghui's eyes suddenly lit up, and he immediately sat up from his chair and clicked directly into the live broadcast room. In the live broadcast room, the female anchor was sitting in front of the piano and interacting with fans. Her voice is soft and her looks are no less than those of today's stars. Although she was dressed very tightly, her beautiful figure was still well displayed because she was sitting sideways. As a senior female anchor connoisseur, Chen Minghui can tell at a glance whether the other party has turned on the beauty filter or not. According to his experience, this anchor's beauty filter was only turned up to level 1, with only a slight soft light effect. Compared with other anchors with good looks, this is almost the same as not turning it on. Chen Minghui swore that this was the most natural beauty anchor he had ever seen on the short video app. The key point, she is from the same city as Hangzhou. After entering the live broadcast room, Chen Minghui went straight to the reward page, wanting to launch a monetary offensive, but found that the reward function was closed in this live broadcast room. Why would you live stream if you don't accept rewards? Curious, he typed in the live broadcast room, "Beauty, where are you from in Hangzhou? Open the reward, I will give you 10 Porsches, let's get to know each other tilde." Not long after sending the message, he received a system prompt. You have been banned by the host due to inappropriate language. Damn it. How could my words be inappropriate? Aren't people nowadays too arrogant? Chen Minghui cursed, he had never seen an anchor with such a bad temper. Seeing that no one was drinking anymore, Suli also woke up from pretending to be drunk and asked with a smile, "Hey, who dares to act arrogantly with you, Master Hui?" Chen Minghui raised his phone and said, "Look at this female anchor. I just said I wanted to get to know her, but she banned me. TSK, you must have been teasing someone else." Suli smiled, moved closer to Chen Minghui, and looked at his phone. When he saw that the so-called female anchor was Mu Shui, he was stunned and looked at Chen Minghui with a squint. "Gray, do you want to meet her?" Chen Minghui nodded, "Yeah. It's rare to see such a beautiful anchor from the same city, I have to get to know her anyway, right?" Suli nodded and said, "I can introduce you to someone." Chen Minghui's eyes lit up and he asked, "Do you know him?" "Not only do I know him, I'm very familiar with him." Suli nodded. Chen Minghui immediately clapped his hands and said, "That's great. She is my wife," Suli added. "Ask someone out someday, get to know each other, and make a wife first." Chen Minghui was still speaking by inertia when he suddenly woke up halfway through, and sweat immediately broke out on his forehead. He turned his head mechanically and looked at Suli. This is. Suli poured herself a cup of tea and said, "This is your sister-in-law, Mu Shui, don't you want to meet her?" Chen Minghui was so embarrassed that he was stunned for 2 seconds before he beat his chest and said, "I deserve to die. It's my fault that I didn't recognize the real talent. Who would have thought that my sister-in-law would be so beautiful? No wonder you don't want to get a divorce, Brother Su. With a wife like this, what else could a husband ask for?" After that, he looked at Suli pitifully. "Brother Su, you won't be angry with me, right? Stop giving me that." Suli also poured a cup of tea for Chen Minghui and handed it to him. "Wake up first. Lust is like a knife hanging over your head. If you keep going like this, you will fall into the hands of a woman sooner or later. Follow your instructions." Chen Minghui smiled and took the teacup and asked, "Sister-in-law doesn't accept tips, so why do you want to live stream?" "Don't accept tips." Suli's eyes lit up. Although he didn't show it, he was extremely depressed just now. After all, no man would like his wife to thank the big brothers for their gifts in a gentle tone. When he heard that Mu Shui did not accept tips, he felt happy but also a little curious. You should know that if the reward function is turned off, the platform will limit the flow, and no anchor will do that. Thinking of this, Suli immediately took Chen Minghui's mobile phone and watched the live broadcast seriously. At this time, some fans in the live broadcast room also noticed Chen Minghui. "Teacher Mu Shui, the god of wealth has entered our live broadcast room. Oh my god. Really? It's level 49. To reach this level, you need to top up 1 million on the short video platform. It's a pity that the teacher doesn't allow gifts." Seeing the students' comments, Mu Shui smiled and said, "I don't have the ability to earn money from live broadcast rewards. The purpose of my live broadcast is to ask you if you support me and teacher Zhang Yue to open a training class tilde." When talking about the art training class, fans became excited again. "Support, we must support." A female fan said, "I like teacher Zhang the most. She dances so cool. I want to refund my tuition after hearing that she is leaving." Mu Shui smiled and said, "You don't need to refund the tuition. As long as you have unused classes at the Chenyu Education and Training Center, we will give you free classes. You can just take classes at both ends." "Teacher, I'm crying. As expected of Chenyu's most beautiful teacher, she is so kind tilde." Hearing this, the students became excited. If gifts could be given in the live broadcast room, then little hearts would be flying all over the sky at this moment. After seeing this, Su Li suddenly realized. It turned out that Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye had already resigned from the Qianyu Education and Training Center. They wanted to start a new business and jointly open an art training class. The reason why Mu Shui used Zhang Huaye's account to live broadcast was that she wanted to convert the fans she had accumulated while working at Qianyu into her first batch of students. I have to say, this move is very clever. And judging from the enthusiasm of the fans in the live broadcast room, they have a very high opinion of Mu Shui and Zhang Huaye. Teacher, when does the class start? I want to sign up in advance. Yes. My dancing shoes are thirsty. Facing the fans' enthusiasm, Mu Shui stuck out her tongue in embarrassment and said, Teacher Zhang Huaye and I haven't found a place yet, but this matter has been put on the agenda. The class can start next month at the latest. Sister-in-law, this is a talented player. After listening to Mu Shui's live broadcast, Chen Minghui also expressed his admiration. On the surface, sister-in-law is offering free lessons, but in fact, she has locked in the first batch of students. This is much more effective than doing a new promotion. Su Li said proudly, of course, it doesn't matter whose wife she is. Chen Minghui nodded, indeed, you and sister-in-law are the combination of Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox, your IQ and appearance are both very good. Su Li rolled her eyes, you really know how to praise people. Su Li had some ideas about Mu Shui's entrepreneurship. He always wanted to do something for Mu Shui to make up for his previous mistakes. But Mu Shui is a person who values inner heart and feelings. If he just gave her money directly, that would be no different from the rich second generation who once pursued her. Not only will it fail to achieve the desired effect, but it will also cause resentment. So Su Li has always been very cautious in this regard. But now, hasn't the opportunity come? He has started a business before and knows that this is not an easy task. Find a venue, report to the fire department, get qualifications. It's easy to fall into traps just by doing these trivial things. If I can provide help to Mu Shui, wouldn't that be a good opportunity to eliminate barriers and get closer to each other? Thinking of this, he said to Chen Minghui, sister-in-law wants to start a business, do you want to help out? Chen Minghui, who was smart, had already guessed what Su Li was thinking, of course. We have a free venue and a ready-made promotion team. My sister-in-law is starting a business, so every aspect must be arranged for her. Su Li nodded in satisfaction and called the waiter, hello, I want to order a few more dishes to take away. He was just worried that he had no suitable reason to meet Mu Shui. Now it would be a good excuse to talk to them about starting a business class. Chapter 025, Too Cunning. Using his daughter as a weapon again. After the show, Blind Bear and Gray went to the bath center. Su Li came to the community where Zhang Huaye lived, carrying a bag of dishes. Although Zhang Huaye has a slim figure, she is a glutton. A few days ago, I was still clamming on my friend's circle for foie gras. The hotel where we were dining today happened to have this dish, so Su Li wanted to try something that would please the guest. After all, one should be grateful for what one has received. If I serve her well like this, I will probably be able to get the permission to come in and talk to her. In addition, he also brought some side dishes, such as bird's nest soup, shark fin porridge, small desserts and the like. There aren't many things, but they are very expensive. Altogether, it's more than 5,000. But for Su Li now, it is a drop in the bucket. When they arrived at the gate of the community, Su Li called Zhang Huaye first. Hello, who is this? Zhang Huaye asked on the other end of the phone. Who? She actually deleted my phone number. Su Li was stunned. He clearly remembered that Zhang Huaye had saved his phone number before. It seems. After filing for divorce from Mu Shui, Ms. Zhang wanted to draw a clear line between herself and him. Su Li smiled bitterly, cleared her throat and said, Ms. Zhang, your takeaway has arrived. Please open the door. I didn't order takeout. Zhang Huaye asked curiously. Su Li pretended to be confused and asked, I see here that you ordered a plate of foie gras at the Nolan Hotel. You must be mistaken. Zhang Huaye exclaimed, how can I afford to eat this? Sorry, I misread it. Su Li was in a playful mood and said, it was a gentleman with a cell phone number ending in 2665 who ordered it for you. Zhang Huaye said to herself, the phone number ends with 2665. Who is this? 2665. Is it Su Li? Mu Shui's voice came from the other end of the phone. After hearing this, Suli felt warm in her heart. My wife really cares about me. I can guess it's me as soon as I hear the last digit of the number. At this time, Zhang Huaye also reacted. I was wondering why their voice sounded so familiar. Suli, what are you doing? Suli chuckled and said, Ms. Zhang, don't you want to eat French foie gras? I went to the Norland Hotel for dinner today and packed up 3 servings. Zhang Huaye was surprised and said, You are bragging, right? You are not willing to buy food for your wife, how can you buy me foie gras? Suli smiled bitterly and said, Don't talk nonsense. I didn't buy it for you alone. I'm right at the door, can you open it for me? After a while, Zhang Huaye came out of the room with a phone. Without waiting for her to speak, Suli opened the box, and immediately the unique aroma of French foie gras filled the courtyard. Zhang Huaye took 2 steps at a time and came to the iron gate. She sniffed the bag with her nose and said in surprise, It's really foie gras. I miss this taste so much. Suli, you really care about it. Seeing that Zhang Huaye was already drooling, Suli closed the bag and said, Let's go inside and eat. It will get cold if we stay outside. Wait. Zhang Huaye raised her chin and asked, Who said you can come in? What's your intention to deliver food so late at night? Suli asked back, Is there any need to ask? I'm here to see my wife and children. Zhang Huaye was stunned. You are quite open-minded. Why don't you think about whether Mu Shui is willing to see you? How about I ask for you? Suli said, Don't. If you ask her, she will definitely say she doesn't want to. Just let me in. Don't you know Mu Shui's temper? If she really doesn't want to see me, she won't let you out. Zhang Huaye glanced at the door and said thoughtfully, That makes sense. Suli struck while the iron was hot and said, Well, let's go in quickly. This foie gras in France tastes better when it's hot. It tastes crispy and sticky, and leaves a lingering fragrance in your mouth. Gulp. Zhang Huaye swallowed, turned around and shouted at the door, Mom. Suli is here again. Should we let him in? Zhang's mother responded from inside the room, What kind of bullshit is this? Let them in quickly. Suli was stunned, How clever. Zhang Huaye smiled at Suli, This way Mu Shui won't blame me tilde. After the 2 entered the house, Sujuor was the first to rush over. After Suli handed the midnight snack to Zhang Huaye, she picked up her daughter and said lovingly, Juor, did you miss me? Sujuor nodded heavily and said, I miss Daddy. Mommy misses Daddy too. Really? Suli was delighted and looked at Mu Shui lying on the sofa. Mu Shui crossed her arms and said proudly, I get angry just thinking about you. That's considered a thought. Suli said with a smile. Shame on you. Hearing this, Mu Shui simply turned her face away and pretended to watch TV. At this time, Sujuor whispered in Suli's ear, Dad, I did coax Mom. Mom said she is still angry with you, and she won't get better in a short time. Suli nodded and said, Dad made Mom angry before, but Mom is a kind angel and will forgive Dad. Sujuor nodded heavily and repeated, Yes. Angels won't stay angry forever. This person is really. Mu Shui sighed and said angrily, Too cunning. He's using his daughter as a pawn again. Hey. Stop the game, both of you. Come have a midnight snack first. Zhang Huaye said. At this time, the mother and daughter of the Zhang family were already preparing food at the dining table. Mother Zhang opened the boxes of dishes one by one and exclaimed, Shark fin porridge, bird's nest soup. This meal must have cost a lot of money, right? It will probably cost more than 2,000. Zhang Huaye guessed. Zhang's mother exclaimed, Thousands of dollars. Just this little thing. Hearing this, Mu Shui also looked at Suli and said unhappily, Have you become rich? Is it necessary to be so extravagant? I'm still a little short of financial freedom. Suli smiled and didn't explain too much. You're talking nonsense. Mu Shui rolled her eyes at Suli. My monthly salary is 6,000, which can be said to be less than 100,000, right? At this moment, Suli was smiling from ear to ear. The fact that Mu Shui could still argue with me like this proved that she didn't hate me. Being cold to me is also because the scars in his heart have not healed yet. It doesn't matter. I will heal this scar with my actions. Suli thought to herself. After some tug of war, Mu Shui, who had claimed not to have a midnight snack, finally sat down at the dining table. Mrs. Zhang noticed that there was some awkwardness between her and Suli, so she tactfully placed a baby chair between the two of them, letting Sujuor act as a buffer zone. Suli had no objection to this at all. He also didn't want to put too much pressure on Mu Shui. Do what you should do and leave the choice to Mu Shui. This is the real respect. Oh my god. This foie gras is so delicious. If you don't want to eat it, Mu Shui, leave that piece for me. Mom. This cake is so sweet. Try it. At the dinner table, Zhang Huaye and Sujuor, two foodies, were so busy eating that they didn't even have time to talk. Only Zhang's mother kept trying to find topics for Su Li to talk about in order to ease the awkwardness. Sometimes he asks about debt, sometimes he asks about investment. In short, these are what Mu Shui wanted to know, so she helped to ask. When the debt of Eagle Financial Management was mentioned, Mu Shui obviously tilted her head. Su Li took the opportunity to back off and explain the current situation. When the Nasdaq stock market crashed, he saved Xiong Jun once and was forgiven of his debts. Afterwards, he seized the opportunity of the Shenzhen series and made a huge profit of 3 million. As for the 27 million earned from futures trading, Su Li thought about it and decided not to say anything. This number is really shocking to ordinary people. Even if it can be explained, it cannot be explained in just a few words. But even if 90% of the strength is hidden. Everyone was skeptical about Su Li's words. In the eyes of ordinary people, earning 3 million in 10 days is still a magical thing. However, when Mu Shui heard Su Li say that she had returned to her hometown and paid back the money to her relatives, her expression relaxed at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a moment of silence, Mu Shui asked again, "My parents called me a few days ago and said they would come over to celebrate the Dragon Boat Festival with us. Didn't you tell them about us?" As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere at the table suddenly became heavy. Zhang Huaye was afraid that Juor would hear something, so she immediately picked up a piece of pudding and said, "Juor, this is delicious. Auntie will feed you Tilder." Su Li took a deep breath and said, "I didn't tell my parents. They miss their granddaughter too. Let's have a good dragon boat festival first." Mu Shui glanced at Juor and said nothing more. Su Li didn't want to dwell on this topic, and said to Mu Shui, "By the way, I came here for two important things this time. I borrowed money from many classmates and colleagues before. Some of them asked for interest, but I don't remember the exact amount. Did you keep a record for me at the time?" Mu Shui nodded and said, "Yes, I remember it all. It's time to pay it back. Some people charge quite high interest. You are such a jerk." Zhang Huaye raised her head and rolled her eyes at Su Li. "Without Mu Shui, you are just a mess. Can you find another wife as good as this one? You can't find it even with a lantern." Su Li was extremely grateful for Zhang Huaye's assist. After giving me a grateful look, he continued, "The second thing is, I heard that you guys are going to start a business, so I wanted to come over and ask, do you need investment from the boss?" Chapter 026, He is changing. When talking about starting a business, Zhang Huaye suddenly perked up and asked, "How did you know about this? You seem to be well informed." Su Li smiled and said, "If I am not well informed, can I seize the opportunity?" After that, he asked Mu Shui, "Do you need my guidance on starting a business?" Mu Shui said nothing and looked at Zhang Huaye. Zhang Huaye chewed her foie gras and said bewilderedly, "Why are you looking at me? I definitely need some guidance. Your husband has a lot of experience with failures, and I want to listen to him so I can avoid falling into the trap. Why are you still poking at someone's sore spot?" Su Li smiled bitterly. In the 3 years since he started his business, he has worked in various industries including catering, wholesale, and digital. It can be said that he fought and failed again and again, but he kept fighting and failed again, and finally he was unable to recover. That was really a memory that I cannot bear to look back on. Seeing Su Li's bitter expression, Zhang Huaye hurriedly said, "Hey, I'm praising you for being hardworking. Ignoring your scumbag nature, you are still very motivated." At this time, Juor suddenly asked, "What does scumbag mean?" Hearing this question, the three adults were stunned. Mother Zhang kicked Zhang Huaye hard under the table and whispered, "You keep talking nonsense here. Sooner or later, your mouth will explode." Mu Shui also hurriedly said, "Auntie, it's past 9 o'clock, let Juor go to bed." Mrs. Zhang immediately realized that what they were going to say next was not suitable for the children to hear. She immediately said to Juor, "Juor, be good. Grandma will take you to bed." Juor twisted her body and said unwillingly, "Grandma, I want Dad to tell me a story." Seeing this, Suli took out a children's watch from his pocket and said, "Jeweler, this is a gift for you. All you have to do is say, 'Daddy tells a story,' to the watch, and you will hear the story your dad tells." "Really?" Jeweler took the watch with a curious look on her face. When Mouchouet saw the watch, her eyes lit up. "Is this the new children's smart watch from Apple?" Suli nodded. "Yes, I have already set it up, and even recorded a few stories in it myself." "You recorded the story?" Mouchouet was stunned for half a second before she blamed him. "This watch costs more than 1,000. Buying such an expensive thing for a child, what if she loses it?" Suli said nonchalantly, "If she loses it, just spank her and then buy her another one. After you bind this watch to your phone, you can call Jeweler at any time, just like a walkie-talkie. It's very convenient. You really don't know how to live." Mouchouet glared at Suli, but there was a smile on her lips. The value of Suli's gift lies not in its value but in the thoughtfulness it brings. Buying a watch is easy, but recording the story in it yourself takes some effort. Under the temptation of the smart watch, Jeweler obediently went back to the room with Zhang's mother. The atmosphere at the dinner table gradually became solemn. After a moment of silence, Zhang Huaye spoke first. "Suli, don't blame me for being blunt. In fact, I want to wait a month before starting a business with Mouchouet. You must understand the reason, right?" Suli nodded and said, "You want to wait until after the divorce to start, so as to avoid some trouble. It's not necessary to get a divorce." Zhang Huaye shook her head and looked at Mouchouet. Mouchouet suddenly stood up and said, "I'll go wash the dishes." "These are all takeout boxes, what dishes are you washing?" Zhang Huaye was stunned for a moment, and it took her 2 seconds to react. "Oh, go wash the packing box, my mother might use it." As soon as Mouchouet entered the kitchen, she closed the door. At the same time, Zhang Huaye also stood up and called to Suli, "Let's go to the yard to talk." The two of them came to the courtyard. Zhang Huaye sighed and said, Suli, if you had known this would happen, you would not have done it in the first place." Suli sighed, "Let's not talk about the past. I don't want to divorce Mouchouet, and I have never considered divorce. Otherwise, I wouldn't have told Mouchouet that I made money." Zhang Huaye nodded and said, "Mouchouet is the same. When she proposed starting a business, she didn't think about the fact that she was still in the cooling-off period after her divorce. This woman, her IQ is wavering. In other words, Mouchouet doesn't want to divorce." Suli asked. Zhang Huaye glared at Suli and said, "Of course not. You are the only man in her life, and she loves you to the core. Besides, Jeweler is still so young, who can bear to see her become a child from a single-parent family? That's fine, isn't it?" Suli was delighted and said, "Since you don't want to divorce, just withdraw the divorce application and start a new life." He. Zhang Huaye spat on the ground and said, "Did you bully others in vain? Was that slap you gave them in vain? The deeper the love, the deeper the pain. Do you understand?" At this point, she lowered her voice and said, "When Mouchouet first came to my house, she would dream about you beating her every night, and she would wake up crying every time. Don't think it's pretentious, some people are like this, a slap in the face can leave a psychological trauma." Suli said, "Why would I feel that she is being hypocritical? I can totally understand Mouchouet." "You understand shit." Zhang Huaye cursed angrily and said, "If you really understood, you wouldn't say, 'If you don't want to divorce, then withdraw your divorce application.' Do you think this is a joke? How can it be so easy to start over? Think about what you did before. Not only did you owe a lot of debts, but you also got drunk and yelled at your wife all the time. You smashed everything in the house, and scared your daughter into having a mental illness. In the end, you even beat your wife. If it were you, would you be heartbroken? Would you be able to let it go?" Although Zhang Huaye was firing on all cylinders, she was still a little nervous. Suli is well known for being ungrateful. If my mother hadn't said that his temper has improved a lot, I wouldn't dare say these things to him at home. She was not afraid of Suli, but she was afraid that if they started quarreling, it would affect the neighbors. Unexpectedly, Suli lowered her head like a child being criticized. Zhang Huaye was also a little surprised when she saw this. "I have to say, my mother is really good at judging people. Suli is indeed different from before." Just as Zhang Huaye was taking a breath, Suli took the opportunity to say, "Xiao Huaye, I understand what you said. It takes time for the ice to freeze 3 feet thick. I was too impatient just now. Hey, I understand you a little bit." Zhang Huaye nodded and said, "We are all happy to see that you have changed your ways. But we won't trust you completely just because we are impulsive. Who knows if you are just a flash in the pan? This kind of thing has happened before." Su Li nodded heavily. "Time will prove it for me." "Come on." Zhang Huaye raised her eyebrows. "We can talk about entrepreneurship guidance. We are looking for a venue recently. You are a wild person, do you have any recommendations?" 20 minutes later, Zhang Huaye returned to their house. Mu Shui heard the door open and secretly poked her head out of the kitchen to look out. "Come out, he's gone." Zhang Huaye said. "Gone?" Mu Shui frowned slightly. "Why didn't you say hello to me?" Zhang Huaye lay down on the sofa. "I told him everything you wanted to say. He felt so ashamed of himself after being scolded by me that he felt ashamed to see you." "Why are you scolding me so harshly?" Mu Shui asked angrily. "Look how anxious you are." Zhang Huaye rolled her eyes at Mu Shui and said, "When you hid in the kitchen, he thought you were upset. He called you before he left, but you didn't answer." "Oh, I just left my phone in the living room." Mu Shui suddenly realized what was going on and picked up her phone to check. Sure enough, there were 2 missed calls and a message. "I'm going back now. I'll come see you guys another day." Seeing the text message, Mu Shui snorted. "Come back another day, it's like he's visiting a relative, and he didn't even ask if they are willing to entertain him. Just come, just bring some food," Zhang Huaye said. Mu Shui frowned. "Comrade Zhang Huaye, have you been corrupted by a midnight snack from the enemy?" Zhang Huaye rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be so stubborn if you tell me that. Can you agree not to let him come?" Mu Shui blushed slightly and said shyly, "I think he is changing. He even records stories for his daughter. I would never have dared to think about this before." Zhang Huaye nodded and said, "It's really surprising, but..." Zhang Huaye looked at Mu Shui and said seriously, "What if he went above and beyond just to win you back? You don't want this kind of temporary happiness, do you?" "You have a point. It's not that easy for people to change." After hearing Zhang Huaye's words, Mu Shui recalled the experiences of the previous 3 years, and her heart, which had just warmed up, gradually cooled down again. At this moment, she wished she was an ignorant girl, so that even if the tenderness before her was just the temptation of fire, she would still throw herself into the flame without hesitation. Seeing Mu Shui's face fall, Zhang Huaye quickly said, "I didn't say he won't change. I said we should at least be more reserved and let him know that you are not that easy to deal with." Mu Shui was a little puzzled. "We are all adults, does it have to be so complicated?" "It's not complicated. Just think of it as him pursuing you again," Zhang Huaye said. Hearing this, Mu Shui said a little embarrassedly, "Remove the again. I was the one who pursued him before."